who made the decision about our appeal. They denied us. We lost the appeal. And basically, they stuck to the same thing they did the first time, that Sean was owed no duty of care. There's like 40-page decision. If you guys want to see it, ask me in the comments and I'll send it to you.
I'm going to pause it here just to let everybody know who may be here for the first time. This is Dan Hartman, the father of Sean Hartman, a 17-year-old boy who died 33 days after his first shot with the Pfizer COVID shot, who sued Pfizer and the government and had his lawsuit against the government dismissed on the basis that the government had no duty of care towards his now deceased son. With that preface, you'll listen to Dan explain what happened at the Court of Appeal, and then we're going to go over two portions of that ruling to illustrate the abject insanity and the fact that the government can compel you to do things and then wash its hands entirely of responsibility for the consequences of said compulsion.
So we're very, very disappointed. I mean, Sean didn't have informed consent. Neither did anyone else in Canada. They didn't say you could die if you take the shot. And the inserts were blank, left intentionally blank. So how could a 17-year-old sitting down in a chair at a community center know the possible risks or have informed consent when the inserts were blank? So yeah, you did owe Sean a duty of care. And it doesn't matter what those judges say. Karma is worse than any judge's decision, in my opinion.
You hope that there's some sort of cosmic justice, karma, life after death, or at least punishment after life, because a lot of these people are not going to get punished on this earth. And I'm going to read a portion of the ruling. When compared to a certain video that had circulated online, I made a good effort making it go and stay on blast. I'll bring that one up to remind everybody, but I'll let this play out.
We knew it was an uphill battle to try and take on the government. We knew that from the start. And quite frankly, we knew that they might not let us win. So we have 7 days to appeal. I didn't think we had any more appeals left. I thought that was it. But no, Omar said we can go to the Supreme Court of Canada. The problem with that is it's extremely costly. At least $15,000 to go to the Supreme Court, and could go up to $30,000. And for what? For them to say the same thing they've been saying, that they just don't owe Sean a duty of care? So we have 7 days to think about this, to decide if we're going to do an appeal. Omar and I will be talking quite often over the next week.
An appeal to the Supreme Court, which are all, political appointments. They're all appointed. And what we are witnessing right now in real time is the system protecting itself. The members of the bar are protecting the members of the bar. These politically appointed judges protecting the system of the government that appointed them, covering their own butts by and large, because they issued rulings that, on the one hand, ratified firing of employees for not compelling them to take the jab, stripping some parents of parental authority for refusal to take the jab. So they got to protect their own butts in these rulings. You'll get a victory on the forest fire ban when none of the judges themselves have skin in the game for having ratified the insanity. In a case like this, good luck trying to get the system to punish itself, because the system is guilty for what it did.
And see where we want to go. The good news is the judges didn't award them the court costs, the $42,000 they wanted in court costs. They didn't get that. So that's, I guess, good news. And good news, the Pfizer lawsuit is still very much ongoing, and we are requesting a jury. So we're looking forward to getting to court on that matter.
I'll pause it there, and I'll give everyone the link to that in a bit. I'm going to keep that in the backdrop. They are still suing Pfizer. They still have their claim against Pfizer. I say Sean's father, Dan Foran, on behalf of his son. Kayla Pollock, who's also struggling to survive in that commie pee-pee-soaked heck hole known as the former country of Canada, is also suing Moderna. But their lawsuit against the government has been tossed. And when you read the ruling, it's Kafkaesque in its insanity. I mean, it is basically a system that will not punish itself, because the system, in addition to never going to punish itself, also includes hold harmless provisions in its supply agreements with the pharma companies that it authorized to mass produce and mass administer this experimental jab. They give the pharma companies authorization to do it. The pharma companies say, we can't be liable. We got government authorization. The government says, we can't be liable. We didn't make anybody do anything. Listen to this. In the dismissal of their claim, that is to say, Dan Hartman's claim, they say that he didn't allege anything that could create a duty of care. So the government that mandates the shot, you want to play hockey, you got to get the shot. You want to keep your job, you got to get your shot. The government that mandates it has no duty of care to the people to whom they've mandated this experimental medical intervention. Paragraph 52, under the header, the claim did not plead any specific interactions sufficient to support a private law duty of care. Nor did the motion err in finding that the claim did not plead interactions that could create a relationship of proximity between the respondents. Let me just make sure I'm reading. No, because I don't have it added to stage. Here we go. Sorry. Nor did the motion, judge, err in finding that the claim did not plead interactions that could create a relationship of proximity between the respondents and the appellant's son. The impugned statements were on their face directed to Canadians as a whole, rather than to a particular group or individuals. Bullshit, by the way, when Justin Trudeau said, hey, moms, get your kids in the room. I want to talk to them. For example, in his May 2021 statement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, let me remind everyone that every vaccine administered in Canada is safe and effective. This is in the ruling that dismissed the claim. Trudeau saying it's safe and effective as evaluated by Health Canada. In her May 17, 2021 statement, Dr. Tam, who I will not have nice things to say about, so I won't say it, infiltration of China in Canada and medical experimentation, there I said it, urged, quote, all people to get vaccinated and support others to get vaccinated as soon as they can. And in his July 27, 2021 statement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau opined that the best way to end the pandemic, quote, is for everyone to get their shots as soon as they can. Emphasis added. Everyone. Not Sean Hartman in particular. Therefore, no duty of care. They mandated it by law. They excluded people who didn't submit to the shot from boarding trains, planes, and buses. And then they say, well, we didn't make you do it. We just asked everyone to do it and mandated it. And if you so chose to do it at your own risks and perils, by the way, it's safe and effective, except the whole sheet that comes in the thing is blank. And we have no duty of care to you. These exhortations to everyone and all people in Canada reflect that the fact that the statements were directed to the public as a whole, since the benefits associated with the vaccine would only be fully realized if a significant majority of the population was vaccinated. They didn't go individually. They went as a whole. Got to read this, sir, but I'm going to go down to paragraph 67 here. Under the header, the claim baldly asserts awareness of harm to the plaintiff without pleading material facts. Listen to this. In short, there are no material facts pleaded from which it could be inferred that the respondents knew, ignored, or were willfully blind to evidence that the risks associated with the vaccine, capital V vaccine, by the way, because it's godly. I'm joking. It's just a defined term. Outweighs its alleged minimal efficacy. How about its dangers? There are also no material facts pleaded from which it could be inferred that the respondents knew that their approval, oversight, or promotion of a vaccine was likely to cause harm to Sean Hartman or any population group of potential vaccine recipients that he was a member of. Oh, young men, myocarditis, they knew damn well of the risks. They knew damn well they said nothing. And then they downplayed it, and then they tried to minimize what they had to admit was 1 in 5,000 for the age bracket of Sean Hartman for myocarditis. They had, it's only 1 in 5,000 per shot for that age demographic, as if that is tolerable. These allegations of subjective bad faith or dishonesty were bald conclusory statements of facts and allegations and legal conclusions unsupported by material facts, which are not assumed to be true for the purposes of a motion to strike. Now, by the way, I'm going to share something with everybody, all of these links. I want to play one minor video, you know. Oh, they didn't have specific allegations that they knew it was garbage in, garbage out. Let me refresh everybody's memory. I have to go back to this every now and again and just actually remind myself that it happened. That this scum of the earth scoundrel actually said this. Listen to this. You want to talk about specific allegations that they knew they were producing garbage at a mass scale and compelling people to inject that garbage into their bodies? Listen to this. Let me preface this. This is Anthony Housefather, I think he's a former member of the Liberal Party. I'm not sure if he still is. He was a member of the Liberal Party. This is our government telling you it was garbage in, garbage out, and then garbage into your veins.
These agreements require employees of the government of Canada that access these documents to sign confidentiality agreements. And why is that? Why is there much more redactions, as my colleague said, in these documents than in other documents? It's because these documents were signed at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody was desperate for vaccines, when companies were being told to rush vaccine production, do testing in an unprecedented way, in a way they normally don't do it. So these companies were exposed to way higher liability, putting their products on the market than they normally would, because they didn't do the type of testing that normally takes these drugs years to come to market. They did it all in less than a year.
Do you know what he just said there? I freaked out about this video more times than I can count every time I watch it. It was shit. There was no meaningful research or development. There was no meaningful oversight in production. We needed to get it out because they were so desperate, but they wouldn't do it because of liability, because it was garbage in, garbage out. So we gave them immunity in the sense of hold harmless clauses in the supply agreements. That's what he's saying.
So that's why these companies said, if I'm going to deliver you this product that I haven't tested in my normal way
at all,
I want to have different conditions.
Immunity.
And with countries around the world competing with each other to get these, the countries had less leverage than they normally do. For example, if we were entering into flu vaccine contracts.
So we had less leverage to these greedy corporations that wanted to push something out because we were demanding that they push it out, and they wouldn't do it without hold harmless clauses because they weren't doing the research, they weren't doing the testing, they weren't doing the follow-ups, and it was just garbage mass production to get it into arms as quickly as possible. They wouldn't do it without hold harmless clauses. And what was the government able to do? Nothing. They were so desperate, they gave the companies whatever they wanted. Massive billions of dollars of profits for a shot that didn't work as safely and effectively as they said, to put it mildly.
Or monkeypox contracts, or other things that were normally available, this would be a different issue. But these are already signed. They were signed at a time the government didn't have that leverage in negotiations. We just wanted to sign as many vaccine contracts with as many producers as possible because Canadians were desperate for vaccines. And in the end, it worked out. We got vaccines, and we were one of the countries that got to vaccinate everybody the fastest.
In the end, it worked out. We got it in your arms. It was shit production, shit oversight, shit research. Oh, we didn't do it the normal ways because we were moving at the speed of science. And we declared that we had no duty of care to the people that we were forcing accept this into their bodies. Oh, and by the way, you know, the ruling there said that there were no specific allegations that the government knew what it was doing was, you know, whatever. And you know why they couldn't amend? Because they were... it was dismissed with prejudice that they couldn't amend. There was no permission for leave to amend, so they could, you know, strengthen their allegations that the government knew what it was forcing into the arms of people was untested or improperly tested garbage that was hurting kids, specifically the demographic of Sean. And now it's been ratified by the Court of Appeals. And then the question that Dan Hartman has to face is whether or not he tries to take this to the Supreme Court as though that would change anything. And the government can continue this all day long because they're fighting with your tax dollars, and Sean Hartman, who will never reach his 18th birthday, is in a situation with him where his father is in a situation that he's got to now, if he decides to do this, do it on his own dime, crowdsource for the legal fees, and hope that the system punishes the system, which will not happen. That was the ruling. And I said that yesterday when I had on Jeff Evely, who's talking about his court victory against the forest fire ban. Sorry, the hiking in the forest ban during forest fire seasons. You know, the courts there don't have a problem spanking the politicians who exceeded any realm of constitutional authority with their arbitrary, capricious, unconstitutional decrees. In this case, in the 4 years of COVID, the system's got to protect itself because a lot of these judges were involved in decisions that violated charter rights, violated human rights. And they are funded by, appointed by, the very government now that they are going to issue judgments against, rulings against. Hells to the bells, no. It'll take one brave judge to do that, and it'll take a number of brave judges on the Supreme Court to actually ratify any finding that the government acted recklessly, negligently, and violated its duty of care to its citizens. So that's what's going on in Canada. Try to do Serenity now. It's not going to be particularly easy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday. It's time for Viva and Barnes, Law for the People. The Sunday night law extravaganza. I look over on the Rumble side of things, and I love seeing, I say it jokingly because, 6 thumbs down before a stream starts. Those are rookie numbers, you filthy trolls. Get out there and jack that number up. We are live on the Sunday show across all platforms. CommieTube, Free Speech Rumble, the best locals community on earth, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and X. I don't really care much for X, but it's one of the options, so we live stream on X. We go over everything that happens in the week, law, politics, the best analysis you're going to get anywhere, because that's kind of what happens when you give analysis that does not cater to the whims of the audience. 2 commentators who will never be captured by anything, not even their own audience. And sometimes it gets some people pissed off. And if you're the type of person to get pissed off when you hear something you don't like, or as I was having an interaction with someone on Twitter, someone actually said, Viva, it's not what you guys say, it's how you say it. To which I said, I had so many iterations of what I was going to say, but I'm not trying to be disrespectful or rude to, our own followers and members of the community. I left it at, I don't do compliment sandwiches. And maybe it made me an asshole of a boss, because when I was a lawyer and I had my law firm and had lawyers working with me, I didn't do the compliment sandwich. I wasn't an asshole, but I find the compliment sandwich to be more patronizing and treats adults like their children. Well, you did good here, and you did good here, but this is what you really need to work on. Oh yeah, and by the way, you also did. No, we're adults. You don't like the way it sounds? Grow up, grow a pair, and quit being a flipping snowflake. Now, that being said, I do want to thank the sponsor of tonight's show, which is none other than the Wellness Company people. Now, let's see here. I'm going to press play, and I'm using the new Rumble Studio, and it's amazing, by the way. But on the subject of COVID, we all like to think COVID is behind us, but what if the effects are still lingering in the body, especially in the brain? A new study from NYU Langone Health found something alarming. People suffering from long COVID showed changes in part of the brain responsible for protecting and cleaning brain tissue. Researchers are linking this to chronic inflammation and early warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. This may help explain why more than 20 million Americans are still dealing with long COVID symptoms like fatigue, shortness of breath, and the frustrating brain fog that came with it. Scientists believe ongoing inflammation and spike protein exposure may be disrupting the brain's natural cleanup system. The Wellness Company's Ultimate Spike Detox is the solution. Created with guidance from Dr. Peter McCullough, this formula was designed to support the body's natural detox process and inflammation balance. It contains 4 times the nattokinase found in most spike products, along with bromelain, turmeric, and selenium to support circulation and cellular cleanup. If lingering inflammation and spike protein exposure are part of the problem, supporting your body's detox system may be one of the smartest things you can do. Give your brain a break. Get your bottle of Ultimate Spike Detox today. Head over to twc.health/Viva. I think it's 20% off. I'm not 1,000% certain. Maybe, I hope it's 20, not 10. twc.health/Viva. 10% off, 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox from the Wellness Company. Available outside the U.S., although sometimes it is, in fact, only available to U.S. residents. So check it out. And if you have any questions, consult your own medical professional. With that said, people, oh, hold on. See, what is this? Come on. What are we, children here? Who is this? Digital confusion? I'm using the new Rumble Studio. You may have noticed, by the way. Let me bring this out here. I'm using the new Rumble. They call it a canvas. It's the new studio. I love it, although it's going to take some getting used to because it's got some features that I wanted forever. And it's more functional than StreamYard. It's more, what's the word when everything's streamlined than StreamYard? And you may also notice, hold on, look carefully, people. Let me see here. Do you notice any wrinkles? Do you notice any increased detail? Do you notice any beautiful bokeh? It's what it's called, B-O-K-E-H in the backdrop. A nice, beautiful, sharp image. Let me show you what I got going on here. I got a new camera. I thank Kyle Seraphin for this because he was the impetus for it. And we got the new setup. Let's see if it's going to focus. Well, it's not going to focus. It's a new setup. It's a new camera. It's a DSLR. It's beautiful, and I'm getting used to that. So with that said, I'm going to bring in Barnes, and we're going to get the show going. Earmuffs for those of you who might be upset about the discussion about what's going on in Iran. We are going to get into a lot of legal stuff this week, but we are going to have to obviously cover what's going on. Robert, you're so small. How'd that happen? By the way, look at this. Robert, I can put you wherever I want. Look at this. Down here, down here. Oh, there we go. No, I can put you over my face. Hello, Robert. You are now the... Okay, hold on. I'll stop. I'm just going to show everybody. I did a test stream yesterday, and with locals afterwards. I was messing around, but I wanted to highlight a segment from that show yesterday with Jeff Evely about the Canadian stuff. So I'll tinker with what this new Rumble Studio canvas offers, but for the time being, Robert, sir, how goes the battle?
Good. We'll probably have another interesting week in front of us as the news develops. The top topic voted on at the vivabarneslaw.locals.com board was the Iran war. Are we exiting or are we escalating? The Professor John Eastman you interviewed this week, we've interviewed before, disbarred by the rogue state of California. What next? The D.C., we got scandals in D.C. We've got January 6th dismissals. What's the story behind the story on all of them? Who else might be next to be expelled from Congress? SCOTUS issues new rules on removal. Shock, it involves a big corporation getting to pretend it's an officer and agent of the United States. That's one area where the liberals and conservatives unite on the Supreme Court. God bless those corporations. We've got Ukraine Gate. More disclosures that got overlooked in light of the Iran war. But Tulsi Gabbard continues to do her job as Director of National Intelligence, detailing what we talked about at the time, but now has proven it in black and white. The corruption and scandal that relates to it, the criminal referrals she's now made. Will we see action on those referrals? The Batty Boasberg gets shut down for the third time in a row on the same case with his rogue criminal contempt attempts. Will Congress ever get around to impeaching the most rogue federal judge in America? An ICE officer arrested in Minneapolis, the beginning of the Fed-state standoff, and that begins. The FISA, they tried to sneak it in with literally a midnight passage, but a certain congressman from Covington, Kentucky, helped block it. We'll get into that and what the progress is. Digital IDs. Congress is disguising parental authorization and verification as their way to do mass gathering of all your biometric data. The Savannah Hernandez, sweetheart, attacked and assaulted at an anti-ICE rally by some lunatics. Will we see some legal relief or remedy there? So busy docket on Law for the People this Sunday.
I've been told I look oily. Let me just take out my silk dapper oilcloth. I have to. I'll fix up the lighting and get a little bit less sharp. All right, Robert. So I mean, where do we start? I don't do the victory dance. I don't do the I told you so's. I'm trying to actually not even comment on it as much as I really feel tempted to. Friday was a difficult day for me to bite my tongue, and I'm trying to engage in the discussion like totally respectfully and totally civilly, even though I really don't want to. The news on Friday breaks. Trump posts out, the Strait of Hormuz is open. Everything's good. They've agreed to all terms and conditions. And there were a large group of cheerleaders, and that's as rude as I'll get, who were now dancing around the internet. I told you so, panicins, doom pillars, black pillars, don't ever underestimate Trump, yada, yada, yada. My substantive response to this was, the straits are open now. They were open before the war, and I'm steel manning it. They were open before the war. The argument's going to be, well, now the Navy's decimated of Iran. Now, their drones have been blown up and all this other stuff. So now the straits are open again, and Iran is in a weaker position. Except the steelman rebuttal to that is, this was never about the Navy or the drones or the Air Force. It was about the nuclear risk, allegedly, and the uranium, which they still have and which they still pose if you believe that they did in the first place. And so everybody's saying it's over and it's won. It seems to me that we were missing the very element that was the impetus for this non-war, which is now objectively a war in the first place. Then the people saying the war is over, and I go back to their feeds, and they're the dipwads who were saying this isn't a war in the first place. I'm like, you should never be listened to again. And that was not to jinx it and say, well, I don't jinx it to say that this ceasefire is going to fail like all the other ones, whether or not it even existed. But it failed before the day was over, and then it's going to be, well, it's Iran's fault, because they lied, because they're a terrorist regime and they can't be negotiated with. And then Owen Schroyer put out the most insightful commentary on it. He's like, this is not a game of I told you so. We're kind of really all in this together, not in the COVID sense. We should be on the same team. Nobody wants to see this go south in a way that is either going to be a demoralizing military loss, or that and a political loss come midterms. And so this cheerleading I told you so crap that was going on Friday is really irritating, and nobody's going to dance around on the other side and say, haha, you were wrong yesterday. Look where things are at today. That being said, long-winded answer. What in the name of sweet holy hell is going on, Robert?
Well, it's a Chris Kraft request. What would be a appropriate protocol for this is indeed, Lord have mercy on our situation and circumstance for the dear mighty Pate. So this past week, by the way, what's the camera? That is an awesome camera. What brand?
It's a Sony A7 III mirrorless, and
Sony A7 III mirrorless.
Mirrorless, and it was at Best Buy for it's expensive. It was $1,899 plus tax, which is not so bad in Florida. So $2,000.
Pretty impressive. Can it hook up with any computer?
Yeah, and you just need to get a couple of converter cables, and you're good.
Maybe
to go.
they'll give us some for free for boosting it right here. Kyle Seraphin should be getting some kickback on that at least. I mean, the people there's some other people getting kickbacks because when the president announced that there was a peace deal on Friday, somebody had inside information again and was trading close to billions of dollars again and profiting close to billions of dollars again on that inside information that they knew about before the market knew about.
I want to steelman this because I do read everybody. I read a lot of the comments because even the trolls are going to maybe teach you something. It was $760 million bet, basically 20 minutes before the tweets came out, that the price of oil was going to go down. Crude oil was going to go down. So you're holding it. If there's a peace deal, straits open up, it's going to drop. So 760 million worth close to $1 billion. I think there was, forget what currency it was. And then 20 minutes later, the announcement comes, and whoever just sold that made 20% or 15% on whatever they just sold. The steelman to that is lots of people trade, lots of stuff. And so this was not as anomalous as everyone pretends it is, save and except for the fact that there seems to be a lot of this anomalous stuff going on throughout this entire war, to the point where even the White House had to say internally to staffers, stop trading and stop going to the prediction markets or whatever on the insider knowledge. Is it not anomalous, or is a wager of that size quite anomalous under the circumstances?
People who extensively trade in the market say that the size and timing is extraordinary and highly unusual, and thus highly suspect. So I will defer to those that follow this in much greater detail than I do, and their near unanimous reports are that somebody is trading on inside information or is more prescient than Nostradamus. So that's the open question. Purportedly, there's an investigation by the Commodity and Future Trading Committee. We'll see. The CFTC will see if they are in fact investigating and what the results of that are. Here's my understanding of what happened. People can go to the Wall Street Journal, which has a major story on large aspects of this over the last several weeks. What's been happening inside the White House. It's clear their sources include high-ranking White House sources and high-ranking Pentagon sources. It conforms to what some of us have been saying now for quite some time, as well about the president's mindset. So that Vice President Vance has been working diligently now for 2 weeks to try to get a deal that allows us to exit the Iranian conflict in ways that is face-saving for both Iran and President Trump. Because the only deal that's going to get done is one that Iran can satisfy its voter base, its public support base that it delivered on, and at the same time, one that Trump can successfully sell as a reasonable outcome to his voter base here in the United States. And what the outlines of that deal, which has now been made public, was that Iran would agree to no enrichment of uranium for at least a decade and a half. Number one. Number two, they would reduce their existing enriched uranium to 20% or less. 3, they would open up the Straits of Hormuz and leave open the question of whether to charge any kind of toll. People can look to the 1930s, the deal that was cut with Turkey to allow them in the Straits of Bosphorus to charge a toll for managing that strait after a conflict arose there after World War I. Famously, the Gallipoli attack by the Brits was seen as a forewarning if the U.S. were to try a similar attack on the islands in the Persian Gulf because of how the great British Navy of the time got defeated by the Turkish resistance. So and then in exchange for the cessation of hostilities as well, the U.S. would propose to the United Nations a non-aggression pact between Iran and the United States that would codify the nuclear terms, but also additionally codify those terms, the end of all UN-sponsored sanctions against Iran, the end of all presidential and American sanctions against Iran, and a proposed treaty that would be passed by Congress codifying all of these terms to make it binding legally on future presidents in ways that the Obama JCPOA never was. So effectively, it's JCPOA plus, with the caveat that Iran has the capacity to charge. There would be we would unfreeze all of the Iranian assets as well. We saw stories like Reuters reporting that on Friday. That was the deal the vice president had cut. He tells the president this, and the president at some point during the day convinced himself it was a completely different deal. He convinced himself the deal was that they would never control the Straits of Hormuz ever again, that the blockade would stay in place when the deal was conditioned upon not only a continuous ceasefire in Lebanon, but also an end of the U.S. blockade effort on any traffic out of the Persian Gulf unapproved by the United States. He says the blockade's going to stay. He says they're going to give to us all their enriched uranium. Says they're not going to enrich uranium at any kind, at any rate, when they plan to continue their civilian nuclear program, to which they're legally entitled to, by the way, under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, to which we and Iran are signatories.
Let me just ask you one question, because the enriched uranium has always been an issue. They're at, by all accounts, even according to the IEAA or IEEA, they're at 60% enriched uranium. That is, by all accounts, far more than anyone needs for civilian use, but it's also far less than what is required for military use. The only question then is, how quickly can you go from 60 to 95 or whatever they need to go nuclear? And I don't know, do we have any consensus on that time frame?
Time frame about 6 months to a year. Now you have some other difficulties with the delivery mechanism. So making that into an actual weapon that's deliverable that could threaten Israel or the United States. Probably couldn't threaten the United States because they don't have that ballistic missile capability to reach that far, but could threaten Europe or Israel. The estimates are closer to 2 years, though there's disputes and controversy about that. So effectively, this would negate the risk of any kind of risk that Iran would develop or have the capacity to develop a nuclear weapon anytime soon, would give the president a big political win on that side of the aisle, allow for the cessation of hostilities. Now, a provision that was the most controversial, that was partially agreed to but not fully, was the U.S. withdrawal of any military bases from the Gulf. My understanding is what was agreed to is that we would simply not rebuild those military bases, but not a formal public announcement that we were withdrawing from those military bases, but that was the implicit understanding. And this would be codified in both a congressional treaty, a treaty to be passed by Congress, and a UN proposed resolution. So this is what the Vice President Vance relays. We've got a deal. The strait's going to be open. We got Israel to back off on bombing Lebanon to honor a ceasefire. How much Israel, in fact, has continued to honor that is very much in dispute currently, because it appears they continue the attack, just not on Lebanon, but on Beirut, but they do in southern Lebanon. But so that's why Iran announced early that day that they were going to allow much more traffic through the Straits of Hormuz. And then the president, like I said, he somehow interpreted this as capitulating on all of his terms. And then he started publicizing he thought it was a capitulation, started calling up journalists across the country, which he's been asked, by the way, not to do repeatedly by high-ranking staff members. They've asked him, quit posting on Truth about this, quit calling journalists about this, and other things. And what he did is he said basically it was complete capitulation. They were going to give us all their enriched uranium, that the Straits of Hormuz was going to be open forever, that no sanction relief was going to happen, that the blockade was going to continue, that they were going to add sanctions pursuant to what Bessent had said the day before. So as soon as that at first Iran was confused. Like, what the heck is happening here? And that's why you saw a delayed reaction from the Iranian regime. But ultimately what they did is they said, screw this. And they shut down the Straits of Hormuz completely, to where now today, nothing came out. Are now saying that they are unlikely to attend what was supposed to be kind of the formalization of this memorandum of understanding while we work on the final details of the treaty and the UN resolution in Islamabad this week. This is because I've been warning people about this. I know a bunch of Trump supporters don't want to hear it. Donald Trump is losing his mind. He's showing early onset dementia. It's been frontal lobe dementia. It's been happening now for 6 months. Read the Wall Street Journal piece, which talks about how the Pentagon had to kick the president out of the Situation Room. He had to remove him from the Situation Room during a military emergency last weekend when we were trying to rescue that pilot, which I suspect was a special op gone bad, by the way. But putting that aside, the Pentagon is removing the president from the command room and the Situation Room in the middle of a military emergency. People should wake up to and not only that, they're now public. I mean, I had known this, but hadn't publicly discussed it. It had gone public. Now it's gone public in the Wall Street Journal. Now, the Pentagon is so worried about the president's mental state, and they say the reason is the president's mental state, that they are now leaking it to the Wall Street Journal. They're trying to scream to people that the man is losing his mind in live time.
I can view this absolutely both ways, and not to say that it's not saying both sides. When I read this, if I were to read this in 2016 or 2017, 18, 19, I would read this as the deep state trying to sabotage Trump by spreading these false rumors. And they go to their trusted sources, the Wall Street Journal, because it's anonymous sources. Until I have names, and unless there's people who are directly, I don't know who would ever put their name to this if true. I could view this just as easily as being more of the same old tricks, leak baseless information so that it makes the rounds and gets laundered. I took Robert out of here. How did I do that? Hold on. Sorry, Robert, wrong one. I could read it that way. I don't trust it. And so I would initially and skeptically read it that way. I see Trump still speaking publicly and don't see that publicly. That being said, I don't know, I don't talk to as many people as other people do. So with that caveat, Robert, the Wall Street Journal did report that. A lot of people are going to be very skeptical, and a lot of people are going to react harshly towards you for positively affirming what otherwise would be. Hear
it, don't want to believe it. But just look at the contradictions in his own post. Look at the contradictions in his own mood. Look at the contradictions in his own sentiment. He's literally been all over the place in this conflict. And I see people, one group is trying to pretend it's 5D chess. Well, why does he contradict himself day to day? Why does he contradict himself within his own post? Why is Melania Trump going out and doing a big thing saying the Epstein victims should be allowed to publicly testify to Congress, directly contradicting what the president has been saying? Why are these people implicitly warning you? Why did Joe Kent leave and say we're at risk of major problems? You have to pretend everybody else is crazy, everybody else is nuts. His most loyal supporters, like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones, who've suffered personally and professionally for supporting Trump for these many years, that they're all nuts and that only the president is sane, and you have to just stick your head in the sand and pretend you're not witnessing what you're witnessing in live time on Truth Post, what you're not witnessing. Then the second category of people are people who think it's all deception, it's all disguise to go in and do ground troop invasion or to go in and do another mass bombing routine. What they don't understand is the president is all over the place day to day. And the Pentagon and the vice president are trying to restrain him and create an exit ramp here. And the president keeps sabotaging it day after day after day. And at some point, what will happen is usually this kind of information doesn't come out until years later. President Wilson, at the end of his term, was non-functioning. And despite that, it was kept secret. I mean, remember, for FDR, the fact he couldn't stand was kept secret from America the whole time. So there have been all kinds of secrets that have been effectively kept. But Wilson lost it. His wife really ran the White House the last 6 months. Then President Reagan had early onset Alzheimer's at the end of his term. People would go in and he would not recognize basic things. But they maneuvered around it, and it didn't have this emotional temper tantrum part, where the Trump has regressed. That, I mean, if people, credit to the members of the Viva Barnes Law.locals.com board, they were the ones to first apprise me of this. I mean, I'd heard from that, he didn't want to hear negative information, that everybody's walking on eggshells and so forth. But when I relayed this, people on the board were like, if you dig into this, look at early onset, frontal lobe dementia, and you'll see a lot of the very deviation of Trump. Like the left and the media don't interpret it because they've always had this caricature view of Trump. So they don't see that he's changed. So they had the wrong baseline. But if you look at his baseline, there are things like empathy that he used to have, actually much more than anybody knows, is gone now. He doesn't have it. Listen to what Marjorie Taylor Greene describes as that call. She's calling saying, hey, look, your words are so over the top that my children their lives are being threatened. Can you moderate something on that? You can disagree with me, whatever, come after me. But he said, if your daughter dies, it's your fault. This is how nuts Trump is becoming. And nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to hear. And, well, what? Would we got to see a nuclear mushroom cloud before we wake up to this reality? People need to pull their head out of their ass, wake the heck up. People in the military and elsewhere need to not execute. If president issues an insane war crime order, they need to not follow through on it because the man has lost his marbles. It's that simple.
And now you're going to be in the same category as Slotkin, what's his name? Not Milley. The bald guy. What's his name? Mark Kelly. And I just want to bring up a couple things. Fuck Barnes. He's a rhino is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You're a rhino, pal. Whenever you accuse me a rhino, that means you're a rhino. You know it. I know it. The American people know it.
Dump Barnes, Viva. Just so you know, it doesn't bother me. I find it amazing that there are people out there who are such fickle snowflakes that they would say.
Think about it. They spent all day Friday humiliating themselves, running around saying, look, we won, everybody. Clay Travis, oil and gas prices are going to be below $2 next month. It's amazing. I mean, certain old former friends, in my case, friends in your case, of ours were doing TV shows, saying, look at how amazing the Straits of Hormuz is open, everybody, humiliating themselves. It was never open. It was never open because Trump was just lying all the way through. Now, he convinced his own lies, but how do you sit there the next day and pretend everything was normal when the day before you pretended a bunch of things existed that clearly did not?
That is something that people are going to have to deal with the very same people who said this isn't a war, and now Trump won the war on Friday. And my only question was, I'm not going to wish that the ceasefire fails at all. I would
love it if all of the people that called me doomer and panican are proven right this week, or in their minds proven right, and we exit. That's absolutely what I want. I don't care about my own reputation at all. I care about we don't have global economic catastrophe. The vice president is working on that as we speak. I'd much prefer that to happen. But these people that are living in la-la land are endangering he listens to Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, and Laura Loomer on a daily basis. They are manipulating his diminished mental state and emotional lack of self-control to get him to make dumber and dumber and dumber decisions and riskier decisions. And that's the reality of what we face. And these people that are cheerleading him are not only cheerleading the Republican Party to a disaster, but they're cheerleading a potential global economic catastrophe. And they're convincing themselves of things like they take Clay Travis. Next month,
he said he'll bet $1 million that as of next year, the oil is going to be cheaper.
As of next month. He said it would happen very soon that oil and gas will be below what it was before the war started. Well, listen to our Trump energy secretary, Wright. He says it will be at least a year before it even gets below $3. Now, on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to have Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity, who has studied oil and gas for 20-plus years, explain why we're already in trouble, no matter what happens, but that it could be off the cliff kind of trouble if we don't exit, if we escalate instead of exiting. But people are out there in delusional land. I mean, it's almost like a Catholic self-flagellation ritual, where each week these MAGA folks have to do a self-humiliation ritual. You have to contradict yourself. You have to contradict your prior beliefs. You have to contradict something from day to day. Well, and you see it, and these people have no self-recognition, no self-awareness of how humiliating this is. I must sacrifice everything for dear leader. Dear leader dictates all. Dear leader is always right. I mean, that's how bad it is they sound. And unfortunately, I wish it wasn't this bad. I wish the president was not where he's at, but he is. And pretending he's not, and ignoring these red flags and these alarm signs are only going to get us into more trouble rather than less.
What's amazing is that literally on Monday, I think it was Monday, where people were saying 5D chess, Trump shuts down the straits. Now there's 120 empty tankers heading to America to fill up on American crude. And then everyone's like, first of all, okay, even if that's true, that's just going to jack up the prices here because it's going to jack up demand. But set that aside. On Monday, it was genius that the straits are shut down. Now all of this business is coming to America. And on Friday, it's genius that the straits have opened up, which is a direct contradiction to the exact opposite thing they were saying on Monday as to the levels of chess here. I don't go as far as you do in terms of mental state, but then again, I know what I don't know, and I know what, who I don't. I know I get it, from the internet in terms of open source information and what's there. I see him speak. He seems fine when he speaks publicly, maybe a little more meandering than usual. It's definitely clear he's changed tactics and strategies on certain things. And when you mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene, that is what she says, he says, and I'm sure he says something different in terms of what he said to her. Set all that aside, what's quite clear is the diametrically opposing, mutually incompatible assertions, statements, and celebrations that happen not even more than 5 days apart. Had Barris on Friday, Rich Barris, People's Pundit, would love nothing more than success, get the hell out, and get back to domestic issues, get back to arresting deep state agents that have not been arrested yet, get back to freeing the Jan 6ers, or more of that Jan 6 stuff, get back to freeing Tina Peters, get back to domestic issues, healthcare, immigration. Don't have a catastrophe of a foreign policy and then complement it with a catastrophe of domestic policy in terms of amnesty, which seems to be going on. Pass the SAVE Act and don't pass the clean FISA renewal for another year and a half. That's what I would love to see happen. That's what needs to happen. Whether or not it happens, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully he takes, this exit ramp that Vance has negotiated is a pretty reasonable exit ramp. It's JCPOA plus in many respects. It meets the politically viable explanation for the war, which is nuclear weapons risk of the Middle East, which is not just Iran getting nuclear weapons. The fear is if Iran gets it, the rest of Asia is going to get it. Well, you're going to see Turkey get it. You're going to see Saudi Arabia get it. You're going to see everybody else want it. And then if they have it, other countries, Brazil, Argentina, people around the world are going to say, we should have nukes too. So the concern is that the whole nuclear non-proliferation collapses if it's not controlled at the center point of Iran. And so this would achieve that, gets us out. The risk of escalation is threefold. One, if the longer the Straits of Hormuz stay closed, the more the catastrophic ripple effect on the economy grows. And we won't hear it or feel it immediately. It will be over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 15 months. Right now, they're projecting out a global recession for the next 6 months. They believe if the Straits of Hormuz stays closed for another month through until June, which, by the way, a lot of the prediction markets are saying is the median time period they think it is, then they are saying that would be a global depression with a global recession for 18 months. So all the way to 2028. So that's the global economic catastrophe Vice President Vance is trying to avoid. Israel's on its own kick. They continue. They're doing things like having soldiers take down crucifixes and chopping Jesus's head off. They're bombing and killing kids again every single day, either in Lebanon. Now they're talking about going back in and trying to raise the rest of Gaza to the ground. They are out of control. Bibi Netanyahu knows no other script because he's up for elections in October. If he loses those elections, he has to go back to trial. He loses the trial. He goes to jail for the rest of his natural-born days. So he knows he needs to be in a permanent state of war, and he will do anything possible to stay in a permanent state of war. We've got to cut bait and let him stand on his own 2 feet and fall on his own 2 feet. And we've got, I think Joe Ken is absolutely right, we've got to rein in Israel, and we've got to begin the exit plan from the Middle East. So this could have more geopolitical stability, limit the risk of economic catastrophe, and mitigate the political collapse and fracture that's happening in live time with the real MAGA base. Not the fake polls that are out there doing fake information and fake and the rest. Just look at New Jersey congressional race. Happened on Thursday. The Democratic candidate who is openly and overtly anti-Israel in a heavily Jewish district, while she did lose ground with Jewish voters, with everybody else, she ran 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 points ahead in blue-collar ethnic areas, in Hispanic areas, in African-American areas. New MAGA is completely gone, and OG MAGA is starting to crack. We can't politically stay in this much longer. We're going to have a domestic debacle on our hands. And all those people that are cheerleading this war, are you going to be cheerleading it when Democrats control the House, Senate, and the White House? James Carville's already said, as soon as we do, we're stacking the Senate with 2 more Senate seats from D.C. and Puerto Rico. We're stacking the House and by giving mass amnesty and citizenship to all the illegals. We're going to stack the Supreme Court by putting a bunch of new justices on there so that liberals have a majority. If you don't want that reality to come about, then you want the president to exit this week, not escalate.
Well, let's bring up some of the questions, which I have no doubt are going to be angry and mean, Robert. But maybe I'm being too cynical. Going to the bottom, The Remanded, who's doing great work out in British Columbia, Canada. Viva, love the show. I built a dashboard tracking the BC Conservative leadership race polls, meta ad spending, and metrics. Hope it's useful. Check it out there, by the way. Go check out his X account. I'll bring that up in a second. The Remanded is doing amazing work for Canadian elections in British Columbia in particular. Randy Edwards says, what lens are you rocking on that Sony, David? The tools are only as good as the glass. True. This is the, it is the stock lens that came with it. It's a 28 to 74 to 5.6. I got the Sigma 2.8, which is a nicer aperture, but that's $800, and I'm thinking I'm going to return it because the stock lens is just damn good enough, but we'll see. Randy Edwards says, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. The self-identified supporters attacking the president today are the same ones who were attacking candidate Trump in 2016. Well, no, because, you had...
the people cheering him on, unless maybe we're confusing the person's chat, the people cheering him on right now
are the ones who opposed him.
Were the ones that attacked him throughout 2016 and throughout the primaries of 2024.
And Dave T, I thought that said Dave G. Tit. It says Dave T. Jit says, I do not see evidence of dementia. It looks more like extreme fatigue. He's running on fumes and surrounded by liars. Well, that's why I say, like, that's why I say
age and stress. I increasingly think we should put a constitutional amendment, cap the presidency at the age of 70, in terms of election, because then the oldest you would be is 74 while you're in the White House. I think the combination of age and stress accelerates some of these deteriorating mental conditions.
I think it's just...
Because now we've had it in back-to-back presidents.
Well, I don't see it with Trump. I see he's in a silo, and it's very easy to have your opinions changed when you don't hear dissenting voices, which I think is the bigger issue.
He does, and he just ignores them and starts screaming at people.
And by the way, I realized I didn't bring you onto the screen because it's a new format here. I had to bring up the actual things here. But right in time, Biltong in the house says, by the way, I ate piri biltong just before the show, and it's keeping my stomach from grumbling. Delicious stuff. King of Biltong says, premium biltong from Biltong USA, high protein, keto friendly, no additives, US source beef, authentic South African flavor. Get some now at biltongusa.com. Use code Barnes for 10% off. And let's get to the... I see when I kick Barnes out, why does that happen? I gotta go like this. Okay, I'll get used to it. Sorry, peeps.
Mini Barnes.
Let's go. How do I do that? If I go, look at that nice little periphery. No, what I want to do is bring this up to the stage. I will get very fluid with this, but for the time being, it's a second show, and that's how intuitive it is. Let's get to the tip questions before we fall too far behind and get to some hate, even in our own community, Robert. Take the time this week to watch when you can. It's amazing to watch the entire Bible being read by pastors, politicians, actors. That's at pureflix.com. America reads the Bible.
Chris Kraft says, have had Trump reading the portion about establishing another temple. Just FYI, that's the portion of Chronicles they have him reading. It's like, is somebody like inside trolling the president or something?
Well, with the meme that he posted with him healing the person, even if he thought he was,
they thought it was Jesus.
No, but the Baphomet sort of demonic looking thing in the back that wasn't
in the
like
original.
Ball.
Somebody tracked it and traced it, and it looks like Ball.
I don't know what that is, but
remember that was Tim Dillon making. Tim Dillon was like, "Yes, we must all worship." But during the Epstein Files thing, he did this whole riff on "We must worship Ball." That's why you almost think somebody like trolled Trump into posting that.
That's what,
because the original meme didn't have that. The original meme had angels, and some other meme replaced it with the demon ball, and he posted the one with the demon ball. And he's posting a Sinatra's My Way in the middle of all this. Folks, if you think this is normal, God bless, go back and look at his first term. You did not see this kind of thing in his first term.
Chris Kraft says, for the Bill Brown was right again, Jar. Chris Kraft, thank you. Encryptus in the house says, here to share my love and support. Want to say that if anyone is upset at Viva or Barnes over Trump comments, you are not listening, paying attention, or too sycophantic to understand. My advice to each of you is to take a step back, agree to disagree, and move on. We are stronger as a coalition than we are angry and divided. Let us bring back the agree to disagree and still be friends. And if you disagree with me, fuck off. LOL. That's funny. Welcome back, Encryptus, says Chris Kraft. Now that the president has won the war, can he clean house and oust panicans from the hill?
That's great 101.
I think that's sarcasm.
The brilliant satire.
How will Trump show he means business by bombing a major Iranian site? Imam Reza Shrine in Masad or the Fatima?
That's great 101.
That's sarcasm as well. How many more young... I'm not going to read that one. I'm not getting in trouble. Gray, thank you for the support. That was there's levels of it. Sorry, Sean Hartman, Canada lied to you, says Chris Kraft. The Chugster, check out the newly week. So
there was a Canadian win this week, wasn't there?
Oh, they have the forest fire ban. I mean, it's such a.
Oh, you stood up for the little hiking guy, right?
Yeah, I know. He did it. Jeff Evely, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, they won their case, but big. I mean, it's not to undermine it. It's great. We see how stupid they are. And yet, in the other cases, when they're just as stupid and just as unconstitutional, the courts and the gentlemen of the bar, Robert, protect the gentlemen of the bar. Commodore Barnes, with your riveting blue tie, can Bill Brown 2 and get it? Okay, we got the Lord have mercy before. Gray 101 says, how soon can we expect a nuclear strike on Iranian cities, followed by tweets depicting Trump as God's favorite disciple?
It's Gray 101.
We got Jonathan Toby, until his empty insider
I think
information.
Gray 101 was asking earlier, shouldn't we get the Lord of Mordor for the honor for President Trump? Get the ring of Mordor, whatever it is.
Insider information plus market manipulation plus promised pardons equals licensed to steal. That's where Cernovich had to go. He's like, profiteering off war is where he draws the line. But I'm a chosen one. President Donald Trump, says Gray 101. Tell me J.D. Vance will be successful ending this shit show, or I'm good. No, Jonathan.
I know there's a wing that's skeptical of him because of Palantir and Peter Thiel connections and Israel lobby connections. Trust me, the story will come out someday. You've already seen part of it published in the New York Times. He is working overtime to get a peace deal done. He's doing everything possible to get a peace deal done. And unfortunately, the person sabotaging it the most often is the President of the United States.
Here, this is where I'm being told you're wrong, Robert. This is from Cameron 1, because this, according to the Grok, or I guess what the internet says, it would take very short, days to a few weeks. If it were days to a few weeks, they would have done it already, and they would have done it before the strikes.
They really didn't do it because of their command. But in terms of, but those are two different. You notice what he's analyzing there. He's analyzing how much nuclear material is necessary. What he's not analyzing there is what it takes to make it into a ballistic missile weapon that can travel long distances in that manner. That is not so easy. That's the actually harder part than taking it from 60 to 90%. You can do relatively quickly, though it's not clear they have the enriching materials anymore. But that part's not the time delay. The time delay is then making that into a physical deliverable weapon that you can use as a missile over long distances.
And you're like, call me skeptical or cynical. I mean, the intelligence saying that it reeks of.
I've been saying that for years, for 30 plus years.
Grok says they have facilities, days, maybe weeks. Jesus, GC Barnes, you're now a fan of MSM. Well, it's funny how Cameron is going to criticize you for being a fan of MSM while using Grok, which is basically an aggregator of MSM. But
it's like President Trump saying, I have 100% approval, according to CNN. And 2 sentences later, CNN is totally fake news, everybody.
Cameron says also, Trump yelling at staff must be losing his mind is the dumbest argument ever. Well, I mean, I presume also people...
Why did the Pentagon kick him out of the Situation Room
allegedly
during the middle of a military emergency?
Allegedly. Are we in danger of panicans going turncoat with Democrats to remove our president from office during a time of war? Gray 101. I think that's sarcasm. Okay, here we go. Bender is great. New stock is back. Bender is the one who made these boards for us. They're absolutely beautiful. Remix.
Great for the 250th anniversary of the United States to have one of those in your house.
They're beautiful. Viva, you look great, says Chris Kraft. Oh, stop it. Thank you. Growing up on Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. Senator Ted Cruz. Okay, we're done. Dr. Pope had a great interview about Iran. Okay,
remember, most of the Old Testament is spent by prophets condemning Israel for violating God's will. Just FYI.
Look at this, guys. Hey, Barnes, you're flying. I'll stop. I'm sorry. Robert, let's get to some of the...
we got Professor Eastman's disbarment. We got D.C. scandals and J6 dismissals. We got SCOTUS's eclectic ruling on federal officers. Mm-hmm. We got 2 big antitrust wins that the Justice Department embarrassingly tried to run from. We've got Ukraine Gate. We've got Batty Boasberg. We've got the ICE officer arrest. We've got FISA and digital IDs. We've got Savannah Hernandez. So pick whichever one. We can start rolling. All of these were relatively even in the voter poll at vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
They're going to segue into each other here but I want to start with this one, Robert. Somebody knows something. Sorry. So this is the markets for Kash Patel being ousted. I would have been inclined to get into this market on the 15th. I'm not getting in at these odds now because I think it is coming. Kash is on borrowed time at the DOJ. But it really looks like somebody knows something or something's brewing. But either way, Patel's been in the news. He was on with, I think it was Maria Bartiromo. I think it was this morning, talking about deep state arrests are coming. They're going to do like what they did with Comey, which was probably not the best example for him to give. Robert, first of all, what is the word on the street as to Kash Patel's tenure as director of the FBI?
Well, he should be out, but I mean, again, X factor with everything is Trump's mental state. So, I mean, I really can't Right now it's very difficult to predict on anything that will happen because of where Trump's moved very so often. So a couple of weeks ago, it looked like Kash was definitely out. Then a bunch of the FBI agents that had been leaking for a little while that Kash was, that he was out of control personally, that he wasn't delivering professionally. Kyle Seraphin has been reporting on this. Phil Kennedy has been reporting on this. Steve Baker has been reporting on this. Former FBI whistleblowers. And they've been reporting on it for a year. And now it's just reached the Atlantic. So his, Kash is talking big. I'll sue the Atlantic, so on and so forth. Basically the stories are just the level of using the FBI office for personal gain. There's been many talks about that, a lot of talk about that. Extending his SWAT team protection to his girlfriend, upgrading to BMW special cars to drive around in, using the FBI jet that Kash Patel himself made the joke about how he was going to use. He's like, this is great. I always wanted to get a private jet. Now as the director of FBI, I can't. That he himself was very critical of Christopher Wray for using it all, and he's using it more than Wray ever did. Getting drunk in the Olympic hockey room where he's doing the woo macho routine while he's not delivering on anything of substance that the Trump 2024 voter wanted, which is reform institutionally of the FBI. Remember, he's going to turn that into a mausoleum, and instead he's upgrading facilities and upgrading the office space and increasing the career staff benefits and bonuses. There's talk of him partying in Vegas. There's talk of him, not having the most, judicious use of alcohol, shall we say. There's all of that's the more salacious aspect. Policy-wise, he's just been a complete failure. The Trump voter has no confidence in him anymore. The ordinary American has no confidence in him. He's an ongoing embarrassment. It appears he tried to frame, along with Gene Pirro, along with the former prosecutor Ballantyne that was associated with the rogue prosecutions that we'll get to in a bit of the January 6th folks and of General Flynn before that. That's who's in charge of it, of framing a black autistic kid for the pipe bombing that was really appears to have been done by someone that is currently on the CIA payroll. So I think all of these and that evidence of that keeps accumulating. Then you have the Russiagate. We'll get into Ukrainegate in a bit. The Russiagate referrals that Tulsi Gabbard made more than a year ago. By the way, why is when he's in the Situation Room is Steve Witkoff, who literally knows nothing about foreign policy. He's in the Situation Room, but Tulsi Gabbard is not. Does that not tell you the kind of problems that are happening with the president?
Well,
putting that aside, where are the Russiagate prosecutions? Now we have Ukrainegate referrals. Does anybody believe that Patel is going to do anything about any of this? He's been promising action for 18 months now. Oh, it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Trust the plan, everybody.
Hey, let me play this.
Let me ask you about the mission, because every time I see President Trump, he says this repeatedly, that the election was rigged in 2020. I mean, he says it all the time. We all know that. And it's almost getting lost because he says it so much. You've been at the FBI now 14 months. Have you done anything about that? And do you have anything to tell us about that?
Absolutely, Maria. Look, I've been with the president nearly since day one on this. As I told you earlier, I was the one that led the effort with folks like Trey Gowdy, Johnny Ratcliffe, and Devin Nunes to expose the corruption that tried to thwart President Trump's first presidential election run. And we saw the FISA abuses there. And I lived through it, and the media came at me then, too. That just shows you that when you're over the target, you keep pummeling the target because the media is going to try and pummel you. We are not going to take this and have not taken this laying down. We did already indict former Director Comey, and that's going through the judicial process. But we also, at this FBI, even though we uncovered what we uncovered back in the House Intel days, I had to come in here and find rooms that they hid from the world.
I want to pause it right there, Robert. Yeah, they got Comey, and let me see like this. They got Comey
until they let him go.
and yeah, with an indictment that was so thin it didn't hold water. And now he's threatening to sue based on the Atlantic article, which, as far as I'm concerned, it's not favorable. Defamatory with actual malice. I don't understand how they even get there, but if he doesn't follow through on it,
especially not because it's his own agents disclosing all of
this. And so my theory on this, by the way, is that to the extent that Patel did not purge the FBI of deep state actors, Trump deranged people who were there to sabotage Kash. Maybe he thought he could win them over and be in their good graces by promising them a nicer office. They're going to either sabotage Patel or throw him under the bus because they see humans are humans and humans misbehave. He will not get away with misbehaving in the presence of people who want to take him down. That said, there was another issue about Patel. I forget what it was. Now, it doesn't matter. He looks like a man who knows he's on borrowed time at that position. I think that's what I was going to say, Robert. When it comes to Russiagate, when it comes to Ukrainegate, and Tulsi Gabbard is doing the Lord's work, and it seems that she's one of a few doing the Lord's work in the administration, Patel's always going to say, I don't have that prosecutorial discretion as director of the FBI. That was for Pam Bondi. She's out now. Maybe that was the kick in the ass for everybody else to start doing something, but it's going to be up to the DOJ to do it. So, FBI, Patel, I think he's basically proven himself to be useless. And maybe even worse than that, because he hasn't purged the FBI of what needed to be purged, despite the good concrete proposals put forward by the likes of Kyle Seraphin in terms of how to purge the FBI legally without worrying about years of protracted wrongful dismissal. But the DOJ is doing nothing, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation is counterfeit cash, cash out, like he's eager to do anyway, and put Andrew Bailey, former from the Missouri Attorney General's office, in charge of the FBI altogether. And then bring in someone like Schmidt. Now, they're looking at even worse ideas for in charge of the Justice Department, and even worse ideas for who they're going to put in the Antitrust Division. They're looking at who they're going to put in the Antitrust Division, someone recommended by corrupt, criminal, felon, ongoing felony committing Mike Davis, because he's unregistered lobbyist. And let's just give two examples of how embarrassing that was to the Antitrust Division this week.
Okay, before I want to bring this one up here, ask him, Viva, would he consider AG? I know the answer, Echo. I mean, I think you've been here for a while. I've seen Echo's
a lot of people would consider AG. There's plenty of people up there that are good and
no, you would be good.
There's some people that think I'm angling for anything. If you think I want to be anywhere near the shit show that is the president right now, guess again.
No,
but
Robert,
I'll be happy to do whatever is needed or necessary. So will tons of people. I think I've recommended Senator Schmidt because he's got an established record as Attorney General at Missouri, got an established bench of lawyers he can bring in connected to that service. He will get through the Senate, and you can replace him with another Republican in Missouri with relative ease. So that, those are the and he's someone with political skin in the game, with a history of success, taking on the deep state in the case of suing Biden over the censorship concerning COVID, sensitivity to the issues that Mike Benz raises about all the censorship machine that's in there and out there and about. Not so deferential to the Israel lobby that'll convert the Justice Department into an extension of the Israeli government, like Harmeet Dillon is busy doing. I'll give an example of areas where Eric Schmidt would be on the ball and Harmeet Dillon is snoozing. The wrongful disbarment of Professor Eastman.
Well, no, I think we cannot have the comments of Mike Davis without touching on the Live Nation.
Oh, he's recommending a complete loser take over the Antitrust Division. And two cases this week highlighted just how embarrassing that corruption was to the Justice Department.
This we've got to cover, and this is going to be the segment right now. We have been talking about the Live Nation antitrust lawsuit, which was filed, which was strong is an understatement at the federal level. And on the eve of, or was it during the trial, Robert, that they announced a settlement, and even the judge is like, how are you settling this? This is a prima facie damning case of antitrust violations, exploitation and abuse of monopolistic powers, the merger between, what was it now? I want to say Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Am I mixing up the details?
Yeah. Live Nation is Ticketmaster.
But it was, and their abuse of their monopoly, which is like 85% of the market, which is jacking up the prices, insisting on monopoly of sales, monopoly of resales, et cetera, all of which just jacks up the price of tickets and makes it impossible for small musicians to succeed, small venues to succeed. There's a settlement, and we covered at the time where the judge was like, there was a hearing, which we followed in real time as well, about how the hell they're settling this case, which shows prima facie evidence of antitrust. 2 states did not abandon their state prosecution of this. Am I getting these details? It was Texas and New York. And
a bunch of states didn't, but the 2 high-profile Republican attorney generals who rejected the Justice Department settlement efforts were Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas and the Attorney General of Florida. Both of them are like, this is obvious corruption. We're not going in. They didn't say it publicly, but it's what they were saying privately. And they refused to go along with the Mike Davis oriented. They got rid of Gail Slater, who was an honest, ethical antitrust enforcer at the Justice Department. Got rid of everybody else that she had brought in that were affiliated with Vice President Vance and the honest antitrust side of the 2024 Trump coalition. Put in place a bunch of rats and weak links and corrupt actors who turned the antitrust division into a cash register for corrupt corporate lobbyists. This has been publicized now all over the place. Wall Street Journal's done cover stories on it. The Economist has done cover stories on it. So it's not just left-wing press. It's right-wing press has been covering this. Corporate press has been covering how bad and embarrassing this is. And then, so a bunch of attorney generals, the Democratic attorney generals, but plus Ken Paxton and the Republican attorney general from Florida, stick with the case, goes to a jury trial, despite all the efforts of the Justice Department. The Justice Department settled it mid-trial, hoping it would blow it up and prevent the ability to get the trial to go forward and force everybody else to settle. Instead, they said, screw you, we're going to bring in a whole bunch of high-end lawyers. Paxton said, I ain't folding, I ain't going home. And they stayed in, and because they stayed in, the trial continued, and the jury came back and said, you're absolutely right. This is an egregious antitrust monopoly violator, and now Live Nation is on the verge of getting blown up and being forced to do what they should have always done. But with the embarrassing part, and then the Justice Department tried to come out and take credit for it, and they just got mocked ruthlessly, as they should, because they tried to sabotage and prevent this from even happening.
A federal jury in New York ruled that Live Nation, the Ticketmaster, maintained illegal monopoly over live event ticketing. The company controls 86% of the market, 3/4 of the overall event ticketing. So this was, Gail Slater was fired, or Gail Slater leaves. Mike Davis takes his victory lap on social media. They try to settle this during the trial at the federal level. Two attorney generals say no, and now you got a verdict which contradicts the settlement that whomever was trying to pull behind the scenes to make happen while being presumably a lobbyist or an unregistered whatever representing the individual, saying we can get a favorable outcome, which we didn't.
A federal felony, and it's what Mike Davis and probably his pal and buddy and also war defender and apologist Will Chamberlain is neck deep in.
But so is there not blowback from this right now? Like, are there not judicial repercussions?
But the problem is that you've got so many rogue actors in the Justice Department, and they've cleaned out all the honest actors, and Harmeet Dillon has turned into a rogue actor, that there's nobody to say, hold on a second, other than the vice president himself. And the vice president's trying to avoid a global economic catastrophe by negotiating an exit to the Iran war, while his boss, the president, keeps derailing it and rug pulling it. So it's difficult for any of them to pay enough heed to how humiliating this was. But in the antitrust world, the antitrust legal world, they were just brutally mocking and satirizing it. And that wasn't the only verdict this week. Preliminary injunction entered against Nexstar that was trying to buy up all the cable news, all the local news networks. They also cut a sweetheart deal with the Justice Department, thanks to corrupt lobbyist Mike Davis. Again, the state attorney general said, no, thank you. We're not going along with this corruption. Went forward with the hearing, and the judge issued a preliminary injunction saying it's obvious what they're doing violates antitrust laws. So they get back-to-back humiliating losses while more and more actors are coming out against the Paramount attempt to buy Warner Brothers, which would buy them CNN. People wonder, why is Harry Hinton blowing smoke up Trump's rear end, talking about 100% MAGA approval, and nobody likes Tucker Carlson anymore?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
It's because Harry knows who his new boss is about to be. His new boss is about to be the Ellison kid who took over CBS and put Barry Weiss and the Israel lobby in charge. They're making the former Shah of Iran. I used to go on these long rants about Israel owning all of the U.S. media. look true.
Hold on.
For those who don't know, Papa Ellison, one of the biggest contributors to the Israeli Defense, IDF, of any American, even more so than Miriam Adelson. That's going to be humiliating. So unless everybody wants to get humiliated by one corruption scandal after another, somebody in the Trump administration needs to wake up and put somebody competent or capable in the antitrust division.
That's a very interesting angle that I had not thought of. People viewed that CNN stat, 100% of MAGA supports Trump, and CNN comparing Trump in a poll to Tucker. People were like, why the hell are you comparing the president popularity levels to a podcaster? people are saying it's true. That's how strong things are going. And anybody who's a panicking is an idiot. And I'm like, no, I view it as sabotage. CNN trying to get Trump to make mistakes so that they lose and, whatever. Now, interesting angle, though, that they're doing it to kiss ass to their potential new boss by showing how popular he is compared to Tucker, and 100% of MAGA supports what he does. Interesting. Hadn't thought of that one. Robert, I do want to bring...
Speaking of the other scandal, the Justice... Now, supposedly the Justice Department's thinking about bringing in Joseph I can never say his last name. DiGenovo? Dadgummit, I'm going to screw it all up. As a kind of a special counsel. Yeah, that's it. As a special counsel on some of these issues. But, did you see? Tulsi Gabbard, once again, brings the receipts. She brought the receipts proving Russiagate was a huge scam by the intelligence community that committed all kinds of crimes against President Trump in both the campaign of 2016 and in 2017 with Robert Mueller. Mm-hmm. Now she has proven what we talked about at the time, that Ukrainegate was a big scam, including involving and implicating criminally. The Inspector General for the intelligence community was neck deep on this corruption, again brings the receipts, again documents it, again brings criminal referrals. But is anybody over at the Justice Department or FBI going to do anything about it?
Robert, it's infuriating because people are still saying, I have a time frame. Be calm. We were told to shut up, stop being panicans, give Bondi time. They've got to dot their I's and cross their T's. You don't want these cases brought crappily and getting dismissed, which is exactly what they did with Comey. We're now over a year in. Bondi's out for having done nothing. Still nothing done on the Russiagate referral from Tulsi Gabbard. She does her work. She does her homework. And then she puts it up there with a bow tie and, sprinkles on it. Nothing's happened with that. What were the most damning revelations from the Ukrainegate?
Well, it's what we talked about at the time that we said that there was reasons to doubt whether this so-called whistleblower was a legitimate whistleblower and he had original source information. It turned out not only he did not, he never heard the call, didn't even hear directly from someone who heard the call. It was like third-hand hearsay. But the information was directly rebutted and refuted to the Inspector General, who realized it was false, who reported the House Intelligence Committee it was false, and then let a lie be told to the impeachment committee. So they knew all of it was fake. It was all fake. They just made up the claims about what the president said, made up the claims about the source of who heard it, made up the claims about what the investigation concluded, all to that's false testimony under oath. That's false statements in the course of your duty as a federal officer. That's obstruction of justice. That's all of those federal crimes committed for which there was continuation of cover-ups throughout the Biden administration that you could argue continues and extends the statute of limitations for the purposes of criminal referral for criminal prosecution, including implicating, the big shocker to me was that the Inspector General, who's supposed to monitor the integrity of the intelligence community, was the principal officer facilitating the fraud on Congress, the false statements on Congress, because they knew this information was false and they said just the opposite. So that's who should be going to jail. Of course, there was almost no news because when you're in war, the war dominates everything. It suffocates everything else, unfortunately. But this is more evidence, and the big reason why Tulsi Gabbard is hanging around, even while she's being threatened last week with firing, that Roger Stone had to beg Trump to walk back, that she's the one that documented Russiagate. She's the one that's now documented Ukrainegate. She's the one that's got a lot of information about the King and Kennedy assassinations out to the public. She's trying to finish up the King and Kennedy assassination reports and go forward with the 2020 election report, which includes complicity of foreign nations, including China, and a wide range of corruption and criminality that took place in that election. And at the same time, document what happened in COVID and the buildup that was criminal concerning COVID. She wants to get the COVID and 2020 election files that she's turning to full scale now out. And the person endangering that is the President of the United States because he's mad that Joe Kent is pointing out the obvious on live TV. So hopefully she's able to stay there and finish those tasks and duties. That's the only reason she's still there when she's being excluded from the Situation Room about military conflict in Iran.
I just want to make sure everybody remembers. I'm just reading a summary here. IC Inspector General Michael Atkinson allegedly rushed flawed preliminary investigation.
That was part of it, but the one she's mostly referring to is the Inspector General for the intelligence community, not the Inspector General for the Justice Department.
I know. I just want to. I want to remember this. The whistleblower.
Oh, I got you. Right.
Publicly identified as Eric Charamella. Do you remember that there was a time in the world where you couldn't write that name on the internet without the post being removed? Facebook, YouTube, comment sections.
He was a fake whistleblower, didn't have original source information, lied
CIA
in his whistleblower report, lied to Congress, Yale grad. So he's always part of the intelligence community. A lot of those, the old joke used to be you knew who was a CIA agent because they'd be singing Whip and Poof songs at the local bar. That's a reference to the Morey's, the club there at Yale. I used to drink these huge drinks. They put these like different colored fluid alcohol drinks in these big massive trophy cups, and you pass them around and you do a toast. And then when it was towards the end, you'd put on your head, spin it around, slam it down, and if there was anything left, you had to pay for the drink. So that that's Morey's and Whip and Poofs. I had dinner there once with Jesse Jackson, once with Kevin Phillips, once with a wide range of people. But that was another day and age. But that's who this guy was. He was always a rat. That's why they were trying to cover up his name. That's why they're trying to hide public investigations into who he was.
I remember living through it, and it's like, hey, don't. It was like the boogeyman name. Don't mention Charmella on the internet. No firsthand knowledge of anything, but just lies. And he was a registered Democrat, Biden supporter, and this is how they laundered the disinformation for that. But we'll see. I just tweeted out, when's the DOJ going to charge Eric Charmiella, whatever the hell his name is? They won't. The DOJ has done
inspector generals or these members of Congress that were complicit, like Adam Schiff. Now, speaking of the last Justice Department corruption, though we'll get to Justice Department being AWOL in a big case in a bit, but the last big of corruption, one of the key members of that corruption was Eric Swalwell, who is now bye-bye from the California governor's race, but not just that, he's bye-bye from Congress. Who might be next? Ruben Gallego? And on some of the Republican list, Corey Mills, Byron Donalds. Who else is involved in all the sex scandals in Washington, D.C.?
How fast that happened. We'll get there in 1 second. I want to bring this up because there's a post, or there's a Rumble rant, and I'm not sure if it's joking. Eric John, pizza artist, has got his own channel. He makes pizzas that look like things. It's awesome. Viva for King. Hail. Cup of Suit says, for fuck's sake, Viva, would you let Barnes get a word in it now and then? I can't tell if this is sarcasm because the amount of people who say, Viva, when are you going to get a word in edgewise? King of Biltong says, I have to admit, Barnes' camera was much better than Viva's. Viva's upgrade was worth the money. Viva's 10 is now visible in spectacular HD. Look, but you can also see all of my foibles. Little Johnny Canuck says, Viva, we know Trump loves the shot and keeps getting boosters. Looking up side effects of the shot and early onset dementia, I have firsthand experience with my mom quickly diminishing from dementia after the shot. He put that post out.
You can't rule out that it's a side effect of all the boosters.
I would view it as sabotage if he is in fact taking real boosters and then boasting about.
Oh yeah, he is. He brags to people about how wonderful it is. It's crazy.
Hey guys, what do you think of the fact that 6 of the 7 remaining gas refineries in California are about to shut down in the next year? I think it's going to create famine on the West Coast.
It's like they in Europe. California's gone full Europe, and you should see there's like a video of this guy that's leaving Germany, and he's like everything's like falling apart because of their decision to cut themselves off from Russian energy, and then and then they ended nuclear energy, and then so we'll have Chris Martinson on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time.
We're going to get some shit for Martinson because I'm sure there are a lot of people who think he's gone, full Candace with his Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson perspective, which again, I've had a discussion with him.
There was a lot more evidence against Tyler Robinson this week.
People
are getting confused. I saw the courting. Some others think it's a trial that's upcoming. It's not the trial. It's a preliminary hearing, not the trial that's upcoming. It's the preliminary hearing that's coming up.
Well, while we're on it, let's just address it right now. There are people out there who don't, what's her name? Liz Wheeler got not footnoted, community noted, because she said the bullet, the forensic or the ATF's report said that the bullet, the 30 or the 30 caliber matched the rifle. And then the community note said, no, they said it was indeterminate, not that it matched the rifle. Right. And I do think she sincerely misspoke, where what they meant is that they've determined it's a 30 caliber based on the fragments. Right. And the rifle was a 30-06 30 caliber, and so it's compatible.
It's consistent. That's the language they use in evidentiary terms.
Well, and also from what
sometimes they abuse that all the time. I mean, have you seen that in cases where they'll say such and such is consistent with this, and it's like, yeah, 99% of everything would be consistent with it. So they do abuse the crap out of that reference, but so far all the evidence points to it being consistent. with Tyler Robinson. They have a lot of other evidence that they started to introduce about Robinson.
Nobody believes the text messages. Nobody believes the handwritten note because apparently, from what it sounds like, Kash Patel said the handwritten note got destroyed somehow. But the bottom line, what the report showed is that they could determine it is a .30 caliber, consistent with matching that rifle, not being fired from it, because the majority of the time you cannot forensically attribute,
especially when a weapon, when a bullet collapses,
so
falls apart inside. That's the limitation. So there's definite evidentiary limitations to what they have, but there's so far everything corroborates the belief that that Tyler Robinson is the shooter. But we're yet to see all the evidence. The defense was requesting all of the underlying files of the FBI and the ATF concerning this. Now, there's some people saying they're entitled to it. It's a little tricky because the FBI and the ATF are not the investigating agencies in this case. This is a state prosecution case where the only thing the state is obligated to turn over is anything exculpatory or that they're going to use in substantive evidence that they themselves have. If they themselves don't have the underlying evidence, you have to go through. Remember the TUI case we were discussing, TUOHY, in another context? That's when you're seeking evidence from the federal agency that is not a party to the case. You've got to go through all these TUI procedures, which are very difficult and cumbersome. So I saw I'm an open file person. I think everything every government agency has, they should have to disclose.
No, absolutely.
So to be for the record, but legally it is actually rare, not commonplace, for you to be able to get the federal government's files when the federal government didn't share those files with the state government.
And I presume it's not, so TUI, this is not a civil case where you issue a subpoena duces tecum and make them come with their files.
Right. Yeah, you could effectively, though, TUI would still apply even in a criminal case. Because I've dealt with this, for example, even when the U.S. is a party in a federal criminal case, you often have to use TUI if you're going after a different agency. It's ridiculous, but that's where judges have gone. So the judges make it very, very hard for you to get federal law enforcement information unless that particular federal agency is the one prosecuting the case.
Well, there's a Hawk Tui joke in there somewhere, but
it would be the feds should just come out and do it, because otherwise it's going to look really bad that the feds are covering up something in those files in terms of the investigation. Anything about it, they should just turn it all over, give it to Tyler Robinson's team to quiet any criticism. But this federal agency, FBI, is unable to do anything, either intelligent, competent, or with integrity.
And the defense intimated as much when they said, look, we got these expert reports from the prosecution, but they didn't give us the underlying data that is in the possession of the FBI. And therefore, we're at an impasse where we can't see the underlying data upon which these expert reports are based. Turn it all over. Why would you not, especially given the conspiracy theories running afoul? And maybe it wouldn't shut people up because they'll just have more questions, but full transparency is never a problem. I don't know how it could compromise or taint the jury pool, Robert, but at least turn it over to the defense and let them decide what to do with it.
Absolutely.
But no, hold on. Speaking of criminal defendants, hold on.
Even the dog knows Tyler Robinson's guilty.
Sorry, the dog had it. He's like, screw this, I'm out. Now let's see, does it get back into focus?
Is that the little one or the new one? The little one. Was that the blind one or the mentally disabled?
The blind one or the tard? That was the blind one. He sits quietly. The tard, Robert, something's wrong with that dog. Speaking of tards, Swalwell, it's not just that he had to terminate his run for governor. He has to resign as senator. Robert, I've never seen it happen so fast in my life, and I've been following this for 10, 15 years. Have you ever seen a coordinated attack? And I'm not saying it's a bad attack or it's unjustified. It was obviously coordinated because there was anything new in what was levied against Eric Swalwell. Happened so quickly. And Key Bono, I said it was, what's her face? Katie Porter. But you might think it's the other guy there. I forget his name now.
Tom Steyer. No, I think it was Porter. It could be Steyer, but that wasn't Steyer's MO during his presidential campaign. It is Katie Porter's campaign. And I think Swalwell did it to her before. Remember all that stuff leaked about how her whole staff hates her?
Yep.
These kind of things on the Hill don't stay secret, but their ability to keep it secret has been extraordinary. And so but they took him out, and they took him out ruthlessly.
Oh God.
The
He might go. I mean, he might face criminal charges. I don't know if he's going to yet, but set aside, everybody knows what happened. You know, he now I think we can
he was
thoroughly.
banging everything that moved. He liked to grab anything that moved. That he's kind of like our labor secretary and her husband, who she goes around chasing the young men in the office. He comes around chasing around the young women in the office. When she's not hitting the booze, she brought in like a whole booze liquor cabinet into her office, just like Kash Patel did with his. At least Kash sticks to the honey trap. Basically, the other. So I think Ruben Gallego. These rumors are out there forever. Carrie Lake tried to get investigators to look at this in 2022, I think it was, in her Senate race. They never did. Maybe it was 2024 Senate race. Gallego is a longtime partier with Swalwell, including, I think, at their, like, one of their honeymoons or something. They were all together. There were stories of threesomes and foursomes. And maybe he's the guy filming Swalwell with that hooker in the room.
There's a lot of people who are doing some, internet forensic analysis and are fairly confident. I would never make that accusation. But what the hell is wrong with
now? That's just the Democratic side to be equal party offenders, because when it comes to being perverts, they're equal party offenders up there in Washington. The Uniparty is in uniformity and in unison when it comes to being perverts and protecting and promoting perverts. The Congressman Byron Donalds is under investigation for his tight ties to Congressman Corey Mills, who, it turns out, Kash Patel quashed a criminal warrant, an investigation for his harassment and attempted assault on various women in D.C. So Corey Mills that's another reason why they got to get Kash out of there. He's screwed up so many things so badly. He's a walking, talking embarrassment. Definitely can't have him around come January 2027 impeachment season. Nobody wants to see him doing his cross-eyed routine. That's not going to play well. But also Corey Mills, how long he lasts. You know who's investigating Corey Mills?
Yeah, I've had her on, and now you're going to embarrass me because I can't remember her name. Not Ash in America. Who's investigating Corey Mills?
Well, put it this way, they're part of the investigation. Steve Baker and his crew.
Well, Baker was on. He talked about that a while back, and I had on somebody else, and I'm forgetting which journalist was talking about the Corey Mills situation, which is what. But my only question in all of this is: are people not afraid of sexually transmitted diseases like this? Robert, do you know where the STD hotspot in Florida is? Do you want to take a wild guess?
I would normally say Miami or Palm Springs.
Do you know what the villages are? The villages.
Oh, yeah, that figures all the old perverts. That's where all the old perverts get together.
No, it's like, because when we drive through Orlando, we pass the villages, and anybody who was alive in the 80s remembers the commercial. The villages, Florida's friendliest hometowns. Let's see if I get claimed on CommieTube for that. They are having sex with each other in adulthood, not using condoms. And the loofah myth. Rumors suggest residents use colored loofahs on golf carts to signal sexual preferences. While this is widely considered a myth or a joke, it has become part of the community's infamy. My only question in all of this is, how are people not afraid of sexually transmitted diseases to go out in Congress or in the government and fuck everyone that they work with? So Swalwell was
just used to power. Like, you see Swalwell, it was harassing interns and staffers. The same with that guy who had to step down in West Texas. The same is the story about Gallego that are circulating. Same with the stories about Corey Mills that are circulating. Same with Donalds. They better get ahead of this quick. He may need to step down before the primary. What happens if he wins the primary and then all these stories break? Florida's going to end up with a Democratic governor. So they need to get ahead of this now. Nancy Mace, to her credit, has been, we need public revelation of all these secret sexual harassment deals, no matter which party representative it implicates or incriminates. This needs to be public. Thomas Massey has taken aggressive lead to try to get a lot of this intel and information public. But the amount of it, remember when, what's his name, got into big trouble? The congressman that, Madison Cawthorn. Remember he said that first thing you do when you get up to Washington is you're invited to a bunch of orgies. Now you're seeing, you got George, what's his name? The guy that, went to prison and got out under Trump.
Santos.
He's talking about weird stuff happening in the basement. So they just got a bunch of perverts. People forget Dennis Hastert, Republican Speaker of the House, was chasing all the interns around and sexually harassing young boys. So, you'd think he was Mike Davis doing something like that.
No, but
so
remember the video of the anal sex in the Senate or the House? I forget which chambers it was. And I was like, oh my, this is terrible. We're going to have to fire them. They felt so comfortable doing it. They recorded it. It's all degeneracy, bipartisan. They should all be, I don't know, whatever the punishment is for that, and the repercussions. I hadn't heard about the Byron Donaldson. I'll have to go look that up after this show.
Oh, yeah. He and Corey Mills are party bros. And you don't want to know what those parties look like.
I'm picturing the Villages right now, so I know I don't. What else was going on? I don't know. Speaking of,
these are the people that should be spied on rather than the rest of us. They tried to sneak a FISA law through as the president betrays another campaign promise and says now he's for sacrificing all of our security, all of our liberty in the name of security, including his own, including ours. To pass a complete open FISA law that would allow them to spy on us without any warrant at all.
First of all,
they tried to sneak it through at midnight. But thanks to the good efforts of Democratic Congressman, I got to give him credit, Ro Khanna, who organized the Democratic opposition, and the one and only, the irreplaceable and inimitable Thomas Massie took the stand and rallied a group of Republicans against it, so they were able to kill it. This midnight effort to sneak in mass spying on the rest of us.
Let me, first of all, I love the fact that you can actually always find the perfect segue, and I was struggling to find it, but yes, Robert. So the FISA, they were trying to pass a clean FISA renewal, FISA 702, the exact same provisions of law that were abused to spy on Trump and his campaign. So you would think that it was a campaign promise, I guess. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was gaslit. I knew what I was voting for. I didn't vote, people. I'm not able to vote yet. But it was quite clearly a campaign issue that the FISA is a law that only works properly when it's abused, period. Trump comes out and then says, we want a clean FISA extension. I'm trying to find his post, but I'm not trying to pick on him or make fun of him. In a truth post, he says, I'm willing to sacrifice some of my rights and freedoms so that we can continue to have this powerful tool during a time of war, paraphrasing. And I say, well, now isn't it convenient that we're at war, so now we need to justify having this FISA 702 clean extension so we can spy on foreigners in foreign lands, knowing how it's been abused against Trump and his administration itself. I couldn't understand it for the life of me. And I'm certain that maybe I'm misunderstanding what a clean 702 FISA renewal means. Maybe they were implementing some safeguards to make sure that it couldn't be as easily abused as it was. But no, it was just now 180-degree change in tact. Let's pass a clean FISA 702 because I'm willing to sacrifice my freedoms, says the president, knowing that maybe it won't be used against him now, but in a year, maybe we'll see. And so Thomas Massie and Lauren Boebert come out against it. And they were taking shit again. Everyone, Massie, what do they call him? Masshole, all of these wonderfully mature.
Rhino, Barnes. No, you folks are a rhino. The only time Massie doesn't vote with President Trump is when they're trying to protect pederass and pedophiles, when they're trying to get us into another stupid war, when they're trying to blow out and blow up the budget, or when they want to spy on us illicitly or strip us of our core freedoms and liberties. That's why his opponent, Special Ed Gay Rain, didn't show up for the debate at a local library. That guy's so scared of a public debate, he won't even show up to answer questions at the local library.
So Massie and Boebert, I think, took some flack for being among how many Republicans?
The conscientious correct. The ones that actually honored the commitments that President Trump can't seem to keep. Thanks to them, but they're going to keep coming, trying to sneak it in. They can't pass the SAVE Act to make sure that we have honest elections, but they can sneak in mass spying on all of us. What does that tell you about their priorities? But speaking of which, the Democrats got another bad idea, which is they want to have mass biometric gathering by the big tech companies on behalf of the federal government. And they even called this the Parents Decide Act. And it has nothing to do with parental rights. It's eviscerating them.
The Parents Decide Act, which is intended to protect minors from the risks and perils of social media. And instead of empowering parents to have the tools to prevent or restrict or allow or moderate their children's access to the internet, it wants full biometrics, full Face ID, proof of anyone and everyone, including the adults who use social media, in order to access the internet. I mean, I've given up on the biometrics. I appreciate the risks and perils, but I think we're already past the point of no return. The government has your biometrics if you've ever flown anywhere. If you've ever used crypto, you had to scan your face. I mean, it's your phone has it. If you have an Apple phone, I don't know what Android is like, but they certainly, Robert, like the jokes go, name the provision of law that they're trying to pass with the exact opposite purpose of what its intended purpose is. And so basically it wants to compel people to show IDs in order to access the internet. Am I missing any bigger details?
No, the Chunkster, by the way, does have a good new Rumble channel. He's out there covering a wide range of interesting topics and ideas. You can follow that on YouTube and Rumble at the Chunkster. But no, that basically sums it up. They want to give an unelected agency unlimited control over all of our biometric data by compelling big tech to gather all of it in order to make sure kids aren't seeing what aren't supposed to be seeing. And the goal, even though it doesn't limit itself to kids at all, and it's a coercive tool, kind of like the Inflation Control Act by Biden was the Inflation Explosion Act. That's what this is. So keep your eyes on it. They're proposing different versions at local government, state level, federal level. But this is the latest federal effort to massively empower FISA by now having our biometric data attached to internet access or just in general. Pretty soon it's going to be like Total Recall. Remember, you got to put your eye into the thing and make sure it verifies.
By the way, it's voluntary to leave your face scanned. I don't take that chance. I don't want to get stuck in Canada, people, when I'm doing that, or El Salvador for that matter. I was like, please take my biometrics. Robert, okay, so hold on. So we did FISA. We did.
There's one more place where the Justice Department should be taking action. Even certain Civil Rights Division heads are tweeting about it or Xing about it, whatever you call it these days.
I know where you're going.
But they're not taking any action. It is the most outrageous abuse of licensure power by any state in at least a century, which is the disbarment of Professor John Eastman.
I had on John Eastman on Friday. With Richard Barris first, we talked about what Trump needs to do yesterday in order to mitigate the damage come midterms. Followed by John Eastman. I've got to say this publicly again. I think I might have mentioned it yesterday en passant. I noticed a comment that said, now I'm losing respect for Professor Eastman for coming on with Viva Frei. And I don't want to swear at people because it's the way crudeness expresses itself. I replied to the person, I said, you are shaming a guy for coming on with the platform of the guy who's giving him a bullhorn while his federal civil rights are shit upon and the DOJ does nothing about it. And you want to fault him for coming on with me, who's in some way, I got to stick in my neck out there in a way, giving him the platform to broadcast and amplify and explain away his injustice. This is the level of sycophancy, tribalism that I never thought I'd see on the right. So I just assume you're a Chinese bot because nobody who's a true Trump supporter, American patriot, would be such a flipping idiot to say something so stupid. With that said, Eastman comes on and explains what happened, Robert. 35-day trial with that whatever administrative tribunal. It wasn't an administrative.
Fake judge.
He gets disbarred. We went over all of the allegations, or even some of the more damning ones, because they allege that he deliberately misled the court through omissions. And you would think that he had lied. You would think that he had falsified documents. Apparently, it's citing a decision without referencing a higher court decision that attenuated or overturned that decision, even if that's the extent of what he did or what he was accused of doing. This is a man who was disbarred for circulating an internal memo floating the various legal theories that could be invoked or could be argued in order to challenge the 2020 election that was stolen. Now, I'm not going to get into the fact that Trump, someone said, hey, why isn't Trump raising the money for his defense? I'm not going to get into any of that. I don't know how John Eastman feels about it. And I'm not trying to sow discord among people who maybe there's a good reason why Trump can't get involved now, and maybe he'll get involved later. Maybe the DOJ will do something sooner than later. He's got to raise his money. It's $1.5 million now. He's got to go to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court of California, in a 3-word ruling, I forget what it was, but disbarred, judgment affirmed disbarred, something along those lines, disbarred John Eastman, Professor Eastman, for doing his job. Now, it's the commie state of California. Sidney Powell had something similar happen in Texas, and from what I understand is the news, she succeeded in contesting, the lawfare against her license in Texas. It's communist level lawfare against the individual political targets, and then lawfare against anybody who represents those political targets. And this was for legal advice, internal confidential memo floating constitutionally defensible legal arguments how to challenge that election. It was leaked to the press. Solicitor-client privilege be damned. John Eastman was disbarred, affirmed, and now he's got to go to the Supreme Court. What do you have to add? And what the hell is the? I should be more polite. What can the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ do about this? Is it not a federal civil rights violation?
It is a walking, talking disgrace that California lawyer, head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, Harmeet Dillon, has taken no corrective or remedial action concerning this extraordinary violation of the federally protected and constitutionally guaranteed civil rights of Professor John Eastman. Now, I'll say something else. Where is President Trump standing up for him? Professor Eastman risked his career, risked his reputation, risked his legacy to defend and protect President Trump in both the court of law and the court of public opinion. And now that his legal career is being stripped from him, President Trump is nowhere to be found. It is an embarrassment on President Trump. It is an indictment on President Trump that he is not standing by the people that have actually been loyal to him. But it's even more egregious an indictment of the person charged with protecting the civil rights of ordinary Americans, who has publicly commented how outrageous this case is, who publicly put an ex post about how outrageous the case is, that she has taken no action. The Civil Rights Acts were passed with one target above all: the rogue state courts during the post-Civil Rights era, post-Civil War era, that violated systematically and systemically the constitutionally protected rights that Congress had to pass a special law to have them held accountable for. And here you have the California Supreme Court that cannot even show the self-respect, cannot even show the grace to issue a written published opinion because those fakes, phonies, and frauds that are an utter disgrace to the judicial branch of any aspect of the government of this country are disbarring an honest, honorable law professor for simply providing legal advocacy and doing and performing his constitutional duty, and unlike those bums at the California Supreme Court, affirming and upholding his oath to the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of California, which is increasingly California with these lazy bums. Congressman Khanna, if you're serious about bipartisan reach out, say something about this outrage, because it is an outrage. Hopefully, Harmeet Dillon gets off her rear and does something about it. If Professor Eastman was part of the Israel lobby and donated money, she would be running to the courthouse to do something about it. So do something about one of our most honorable, honest, constitutional law professors. Stand up for this. Sue those rogue judges. Wake them up. Open a criminal investigation into them. Wake them up. And petition the Supreme Court of the United States on his behalf.
You mentioned it, and I feel almost like I must misunderstand something because I am a Canadian schnook whose knowledge of American law has been acquired in the last 10 years. When we're talking about Tina Peters and people make fun of me for being an idiot, not knowing how things work, it's a state issue, Viva. The feds can't get involved. And I'm like, I didn't realize that the states had the right to violate federal civil rights. When you say that these laws were enacted specifically to go after rogue states who refuse to recognize federal civil rights, is there not an argument? Am I out in left field? I don't think I am, because I think I'm picking the brains of people who I know are smarter than me. The states don't have the right to violate federal civil rights, and so you can go out.
They're the design target. Had someone ask in the locals chat, what can she do? She could sue them tomorrow. Sue the California Supreme Court justices in their individual name for violating Professor Eastman's federally protected civil rights. Open a federal grand jury into those judges and have those judges criminally investigated and, I believe, indicted for their crimes. We did it to a judge who interfered with immigration enforcement in Wisconsin. We can do it just as easily in California. These are, and you can do it in Sacramento because that's where those judges are. So you're not stuck in San Francisco or LA. So you'd have a more mixed, because that's the whole valley there, that district covers, or large parts of the valley. So you have an impartial jury. And this was what the Civil Rights Acts were designed for. But she has refused to take any corrective action unless if it's a college student getting into a fight in Florida State over a little argument over Israel, the Civil Rights Division runs right in. If it involves anybody being critical of Israel on Harvard's campus, the Civil Rights Division runs right in. If somebody does graffiti on a wall, the Civil Rights Division is right there. But a constitutional law professor who stood up to expose 2020 election fraud, the Civil Rights Division is asleep.
Well, we got a question in our locals community. I'm going to go out of turn or out of temporal line here just because I want to bring it up. Sue them under what law or tort? Asks P. Hans.
42 USC 1983 section, and the other sections as well. There's ones that have criminal enforcement, ones that have civil enforcement. These were designed to deal with rogue state judges, corrupt state judges. This is corruption that these judges are involved in. They are punishing a law. They don't even have the decency to write an opinion, for crying out loud. They've not only, in my belief, from my perspective, unconstitutionally under California law, delegated their duties and tasks to an unelected official for fact-finding and legal conclusions, so they haven't even issued. They've disbarred someone without any written findings of fact. They've disbarred them without any legal findings. They just say, petition denied. They're the ones who are supposed to be taking the action to make the factual findings and legal conclusions. It's the law license doesn't come from the California State Bar. It comes from the Supreme Court of California. And yet they're doing nothing about it. Nothing about it. This is the same California Supreme Court that took forever to do anything about open, overt Democratic criminals practicing law. But now they rush in to do without any due process of law. I think his due process has also been violated. You have a property right in your law license. In my view, you have a constitutional right to pursue your occupation. But let's say you don't even accept that. At a minimum, it is recognized that you have once given a license, you have a constitutionally protected interest of due process in that license. They have violated that due process. They have done it in violation of his First Amendment rights and his advocacy obligations. And those are all federally protected civil rights to which a civil rights suit and a criminal investigation could both be opened. So Harmeet, get off your rear and do something about it.
Let me, I think we've answered that question, P. Hans. What I noticed Barnes say with Harmeet Dillon could do, what should she be doing? I'm not sure it can get much clearer than that. And I think that's where we're at.
It's what she should have done to that rogue judge in the Tina Peters case. Drag his rear end for violating federally protected civil rights. You do not get to abuse your authority in this way. So somebody do something. And so far, she's just, sleep at the wheel unless it involves an Israel lobby donor. Then she's right at it. Then she's over eager. Then she's over anxious to help and contribute while she's protecting and running cover for corrupt criminals like Mike Davis in her former law firm doing business with Mike Davis, who's getting rich off corrupt deals with the Justice Department. Embarrassing, Harmeet. Embarrassing.
It is very bad. There's no other way to say it. And meanwhile now, Professor Eastman has to crowdfund for his own ability to strive for his license. He's got to determine whether or not he can still act at the federal level. He's explained, even with his law license.
Trump should be funding all of that. That's just an outrageous betrayal of somebody who went to bat for him. People wonder, why people don't go to full bat for Donald Trump anymore? Because he'll betray you at a moment's notice. If you betray him, he rewards you. If you reward him and stick with him, he betrays you. That's who there's no better example than Professor Eastman. This is embarrassing on President Trump. Embarrassing. Failure to stand by. He should be raising all the funds for Professor Eastman. He's got more than enough money to cover it. He's added $4 billion to his bank account since he's been elected president. He's increased his wealth more than any man in American history since being president. Why don't you use a little bit of it for the man who stood by you in time of need?
We got Ginger Ninja in the house over on Rumble says, Donald demands unlimited personal loyalty from everyone, including the voters, but has zero loyalty to anyone unless they're ready to write a check. The modern 30 pieces of silver. Karen Tov says, hey guys, what do you think of the fact that, I got that. We already got that one. Robert, what do we move on to now?
So we have, but here's some good news. Even if their motivation might have been corrupt, we finally got some dismissals on the last of the January 6 cases.
That was the good news of the week. I say it's the good news, and like we say, for potentially sinister reasons. So the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, they're between the two of them 13 folk who got commutations of sentences but did not get pardons. And the legal distinction there, from certain firearm possession rights, there's issues. But most importantly, the ones who got commutations but were still convicted seditionists, conspiracists, whatever the hell you want to call it, they had their military benefits suspended. And they had been suspended for years. And these are the ones, the members who didn't, God willing, God thank God, didn't take their own lives. But there were a number of people who took their own lives during this entire process of abuse and torture. After all of that, a number of them were appealing their convictions for seditious conspiracy for obvious reasons. That law itself is arguably unconstitutional. Set all that aside, their rights were violated, Brady obligations violated during their persecutions, and the instrumental player in all of this was none other than Jocelyn Ballantyne, who's still in the persecution and arguable framing of Brian Cole Jr. All of these people were victims of lawfare, victims of judicial abuse. Whether or not you think that people are still going to always think that they're terrible, violent criminals who were unarmed, weren't even there on January 6th, and yet somehow were guilty of seditious conspiracy, getting sentences of 10 to 22 years, depending on which ones. Just last week, out of the blue, I mean, it's sort of on the eve of some filings in the appeals process, the DOJ files a motion to vacate their convictions and remand to the lower court for dismissal. And it's a +1. It's an obvious right decision to be made. The only question is whether or not there's some sinister or corrupt motivation behind it. And I know that a lot of people have been floating some corrupt ideas that if this ever went to the appeals process, you would have to expose some of the corruption and abuse of process by none other than the woman who is now leading the persecution against Brian Cole Jr. I got into it with a few people, but on the internet, Shipwrecked Crew for one, and we have our back and forths now on the internet. Still listen to what he has to say, even if I think he might lack some. His discretion in terms of human interactions might cause people to not be able to listen to what he has to say. But set that aside, I still listen to what he has to say. I'm just not convinced by it when compared to what other lawyers have to say. What's your take on why? What's your take on the when? And what's your take on whether or not this is more corruption to hide past corruption that has not been purged from the DOJ?
Well, I'm very glad to see the dismissal. I mean, it's long overdue, but glad to see the dismissal. Honorable people who've served our country like Joe Biggs never belonged in this position to begin with. So great credit that a dismissal occurred. However, whatever the motivation is, to that extent, I care far less about that than some degree of justice has been served by the dismissal of these rogue charges being instituted and requested by the Justice Department at the appellate level. Now, I suspect the actual motivation was not honor and honesty, but was instead continuing to cover up the corruption of Ballantyne, who was neck deep in this case, made all kinds of Brady and constitutional violations, might have been exposed by the Court of Appeals in the context of this case, and is currently being exposed in the pipe bomber case, where she is, again, rigged and framed, along with Kash Patel and Dan Ballas Bongino, a black autistic kid, for someone that's on the CIA payroll. But I'm still glad that this dismissal occurred. I have doubts about the motivation behind it. Do I still doubt Jean Pirro? Yeah, this is someone who loved keeping innocent people in prison and bragged about it when she was a state prosecutor, and is now neck deep in the wrongful framing of the black autistic kid for the pipe bombing. But I'm still glad to see that these gentlemen do not have to face ongoing risk and exposure and can get hopefully some financial remedy. Credit to one of the people who are like, well, what law could possibly be applicable to Eastman? Could also be applicable here in many respects. But definitely in the Eastman case, Amendment 14, Section 1, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That's what they've done to Professor Eastman. That's what rogue, corrupt prosecutor Ballantyne did to these January 6th defendants.
Well, let's get to what this rogue prosecutor Ballantyne is now doing to Brian Cole Jr. as well, with the signature or the authorization of Jeanine Pirro, they added 2 new charges, Robert, to Brian. Did we talk about this last week? They added 2 new terrorism charges to Brian Cole Jr.'s indictment. I know we did talk about it. I can't remember if it was last week or during the week. And it seems that they're doing exactly with Brian Cole Jr. what they did with the Jan 6ers. Slap on additional charges, threaten to put them away for the rest of their lives in a venue that is unfavorable to all of them. They had a 100% conviction rate at the jury level of the Jan 6ers when they went to jury, and a 98% conviction rate when they went to a bench trial. And they're doing the exact same MO, and the same person's doing it to Brian Cole Jr. now by adding on terrorism charges, which could, scare a kid into copping a plea, pleading to lesser charge of whatever, and then vindicating to some extent the person who others strongly believe might have been the one who actually carried this out. So it's just like she still works there. John Eastman has been disbarred and lost his law license for defending Trump. And this woman who persecuted the very people that Trump had to pardon is doing it again to another person right now, still has her job, is still making whatever bank she's making as a federal employee. And the only justice at the end of the day is now the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys can get back to their lives and trying to make a life out of what they have left. It's atrocious.
No doubt about it whatsoever. Now, speaking of rogue judges in the District of Corruption, finally, the D.C. Court of Appeals reined in Judge Boasberg this week.
Which one was this? Was this the one where he said my court order might have been vacated, but not my not the sanction I imposed?
He was trying to hold everybody in criminal contempt. For those that don't remember, Batty Boasberg, who's got corrupt familial connections to some of these illegal immigration promotion organizations, issued the crazy order to begin with that tried to prohibit and prevent President Trump from deporting rapists, criminals, and others. And they issued a bogus order to force him to try to return people back to the United States. That order got overturned. So then he started various civil contempt proceedings to try to go after him for an order that had already been overturned. That got overturned. So he started criminal contempt proceedings, trying to put people in prison and invading the executive privilege of information concerning the entire decision-making process. And so finally, the D.C. Circuit Court came in and said, no more, issued the extraordinary writ of mandamus, which is very rare, and said, not only are we vacating this case, we are saying you must vacate all contempt proceedings, period. You never had this authority. You don't have this authority. Quit screwing around. Quit violating the law. Quit abusing your oath. Quit misusing your power, and end this nonsense. Now, if the Senate and the House had any guts and courage to do anything ethical and honest instead of be subservient to the corrupt deep state with things like the FISA law, they would be finally initiating and originating impeachment. Here you have the D.C. Court of Appeals documenting 3 different times this judge has gone completely AWOL, often for reasons of personal corruption, endangering our national security by his rogue actions. So maybe we will, but at least finally put an end to this ridiculous show trial by Batty Boasberg.
It's amazing that, he's never going to get convicted, so why bother impeaching horse crap? And who knows? Like, maybe you'll get some conscience. Maybe Fetterman. I don't know how many you have to flip to get a conviction. It makes no sense that he has not been impeached. We've been saying it for forever, and we'll keep screaming into the sky. Robert, I've been told that I missed something on.
I assume Viva will be back.
Tom C800 says, breaking, Iran launches drone attack on U.S. vessels. I don't know if that's true. I'll look that up in a second, but this is what, am I too big here? You forgot to read the details last time. Now back in stock, I have made another batch of waving wooden American flags and would like to offer a discount to the locals community. Well, you're making it to the world now. I'm also selling a Gadsden Union flag and have less than perfect flags as well. Go to renixwoodworking.com. Use code LOCALS50 for $50 off any full price. Everyone go. I'll show you what mine looks like.
renixwoodworking.com. Those are great. Those are fantastic. Great way to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution.
Let me, Robert, let me want to get mine. I want to make sure I don't run over my dog. He's not here because he left. Okay, hold on. Look at this. I'm gonna take you out for 1 second, Robert. Look at this. It's so easy. No, hold on. Boom. Take this out. Remove. Look at that full, beautiful, solid Magnificent. And now I'll bring Robert back in and I'll put this back after the show. Okay. What do we got now, Robert?
We got SCOTUS. We got the Quo Warranto petition against the Trump administration, the Popular Vote Compact to replace the Electoral College, Savannah Hernandez, an ICE officer arrest, First Amendment and licenses, media censorship limited, and a cop found guilty in Chicago over the throwing the freezer case.
Can he sue for lost income while his license case goes through the courts? Asks Alien Baby.
They try to make that tricky and require full adjudication of the first when they shouldn't, in my opinion. But he can at least try to initiate it. It'd be helpful if the Justice Department did it on his behalf.
I didn't bring it up. Sorry, I forgot. I wanted to show the actual comment. And then we got Crash. Well, let me show the comment here. It was Crash. Robert and Viva, these judges perverting the law. How close do you think we are to when the average people will turn on these judges as they will start to see fit? No, don't do it because it won't do anything and you'll just end up in jail. I think we're only 10 to 20 years away.
When judges lose credibility and nobody enacts their will, then the judicial system collapses. That's what they run the risk of if they continue to run rogue.
We got also Jonathan Toby says, Toby's first birthday today. It's also 31 years since the Oklahoma City bombing, 33 years since Waco, Hayden Christensen's 45th birthday, James Franco's 48th birthday, Tim Curry's 80th birthday. And I'm going to check up
on Tony's first birthday.
I'm going to go check up
the other anniversaries we might want to skip.
Oh, hold on, here we go. All right, so we'll do a couple more, then we'll head over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
We got SCOTUS removal, the Popular Vote Compact, Savannah Hernandez, ICE. So some media censorship, First Amendment and licensure out of Iowa. So the SCOTUS probably do SCOTUS removal and the Popular Vote Compact here and save the ICE case, the cop case, the Savannah Hernandez case, the media censorship case, and the First Amendment case for the after party at Rumble Premium or vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
Now everybody knows how you can support on Locals. I want to show everybody. Let me see if we go here, everybody knows this, right? You can go, if you're watching on the landing page, click on
locals.com.
If you want to support, look, this is the ratio that I'm looking at here. Go to the comment section on most you're going to see a ratio of thumbs up and thumbs down that are going to be very interesting. Oh, look at this. What I was going to say is if you want to tip with crypto, by the way, download Rumble Wallet, not the sponsor of today's show. That is the wellness company. You can tip with crypto. Download the wallet. If you invest in crypto at your own risks and perils, you can scan if you want to support the work that we're doing here. I forgot to add it to the stage again. This is how you do it. You go on the platform, download the wallet, you clip on tip right here, and you can get to whatever wallet. If you want to tip with XAUT, which is gold-backed crypto, you can do that. And Robert, I started something new. We're going to see how it works. I got to get my fingers used to this. Steven Crowder's dad started something. It's called Shoutout. And it's like personalized. It's like a video of a custom video, like that Cameo type thing. It is. If you want to try it, I'm new to this. Shoutout.us/VivaFry, or the most cost-effective way, Rumble Rants or tipped questions in our Locals community, which we read all the time, and we're going to do that now. All right, so SCOTUS. Topic?
Yes, so at SCOTUS, we got a removal case that is a peculiar removal case that can only reach SCOTUS because of the kind of removal case that it was.
It's oil drilling. I'm trying to refresh my memories right now.
So Louisiana was suing Chevron and some oil companies over how they were extracting oil from their counties and they're called parishes there in Louisiana. The old Napoleonic Code, French Code, was installed there back in the day. Only civil law state in the Union. Because of that unique history, not a common law state. But they required permits, and part of what they were challenging went back all the way to World War II, at how the oil companies were violating the conditions of their permits in extracting oil in ways that was endangering the infrastructure and environment there beyond what was needed or necessary, because Louisiana is a very pro-oil state in general. They removed the case, recognizing state courts would not be sympathetic with their big corporate position. they remove the case to federal district court. Now, generally, when you remove a case to federal district court, if the district court denies your removal request and remands it to state court, you have no right of appeal. The exception is if instead you bring your removal request as a federal officer. And it's like, how in the world are they a federal officer? So it goes up to the Fifth Circuit, and they're like, no, you're not a federal officer. They were claiming that because they did things during World War II, that World War II was, though quite tangential, related to some aspect of the challenge being brought by these Louisiana parishes, because some aspect of the damages and other issues date to that time period, even though only a small part do. That the net effect was that they were acting as an agent of the federal government and thus were a federal officer that could allow removal under the federal officer statute that allows federal officers performing federal duties to do it. Remember, these are the same federal courts that claim Trump wasn't a federal officer for when he was president of the United States, for actions he took as president of the United States when they came after him and sued him and indicted him in New York. Somehow, these same courts decide all of a sudden, Chevron goes up to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they decide that, yes, indeed, Chevron was a federal officer, even though they admit that traditional standards required a nexus between the suit and your action as a federal officer. They said, nah, no nexus required. Instead, they said, all that's required is that it relate to the case, and it relates to it as long as it's not tenuous, remote, or peripheral. That now it doesn't really need a nexus at all. Now, watch them completely reverse this when it's some ordinary person trying to seek relief, because this was all these poor big corporations. And it's when the conservative lawyers and the liberal lawyers all get together. They love to get together when it's the poor big corporations and assert all kinds of constitutional rights many people didn't even know they had. I mean, I would note the corporations of this kind did not even exist at the time of our founding. They're eager to scrap all their originalism and living constitutionalism as long as they can protect those big corporations. And that's what happened here.
Robert, I'm going to bring something up here on the Rumble side of things. I wanted to see what the chat, there was some funny stuff in the chat, but Taggin said, read this, curly boy. And I don't know what that means. 216 Cleveland 440 says Trump was completely senile in 2020 and 24. Watch him on PBD podcast. I think I saw that. I don't think I remember. I don't think I remember remembering anything that sounded bizarre. This sounds like what PBD started with Minex. Yeah, it's sort of like I'm not showing it. I have to get in the habit, Viva. Okay, sorry. It's sort of like Minex. It's like Kevin. It's like a custom video, but it's like, send it. If Bill Brown's going to send some baseball cards, we're going to have our private opening on the locals community. It's like, it's not only okay, people. Now, what was I going to say? There was another tip question that came in over. Andrew Piscadlo is back in. Why is this the default when I come out of the screen share? I'll have to figure that out afterwards. Piscadlo over on our Viva Barnes Law.locals.com community. I don't know who made this beautiful meme, but that's cripe. I think she wore it better. All right, Piscadlo was
berserk about raw milk, I think, this past week.
Oh, here, Andrea. Hey, Viva Barnes, checking into lockdown a time for your segments on Sharp, Joy, Money Bomb on August 29. You both mentioned you're in. April, what did I say? Yes, we're both in, so we'll lock down the time. I know you texted me, Andrea. I just need to get those slots in the calendar. Make mine as early as possible. I'm an old man. And then I think, that was Andrea, not Andrew Piscadlo. Okay, good. What do we do? Do we do, what's the last one we do over here?
We got I think we could cover either Savannah Hernandez or Popular Vote Compact is the last one here. And then we'll have the Quaranto petition being filed.
I have to look up what Quaranto was.
The ICE officer arrest, a cop arrested for throwing a cooler at somebody, going to prison actually for over that. First Amendment licensure restrictions. We got all of those. So I think the last one we'll cover here for the open on YouTube and everywhere else, either Savannah Hernandez or the new Popular Vote Compact and its constitutional challenges.
Let's do Savannah Hernandez. That's more mainstream, and then our local.
And she's a sweetheart. She deserves full coverage.
No, it's everybody's seen it. I think it happened. It happened on Saturday of last week. I think, give or take. I remember when it was going viral, and it's Savannah Hernandez, Sav says, is a journalist. She's amazing. I mean, you may not like her because you're an idiot, but she does great work, and she goes into the belly of the beast, quite literally, in Minnesota. And she was assaulted by a group of radical lunatics. There's one idiot who's blowing one of these like rape whistles, and I'm not trying to be funny, but like these loud whistles that are intended for emergency use in her ear. Then she starts getting rustled up by this woman, and she gets shoved to the ground by the woman's father. I wanted to play that clip all week, where this jackass who shoves Savannah Hernandez to the ground from her back, like a hard to the back where the
from
head
behind comes up
Yeah.
and he thinks he's all macho about it.
This guy. I mean, he looks like he's 6 feet tall. He looks like he's about 180, maybe 200 pounds. He looks kind of like a like Butterbean, but a little bit lighter. He looks like not Mirko Krokop. The other one of I'm not Boss Rutan. He looks like the guy, one of the UFC fighters. He's a big burly guy. Shoves a woman who might be 120 pounds wet to the ground. Whiplash. She falls down. She gets assaulted by the gang of lunatics. A number of them face charges. One of them, who the individual was, doesn't face a charge. My issue in all of that is anybody blowing these whistles in your ear with the intent to cause harm should be charged as a matter of procedure. Every single time, any single time. It's not the type of thing that should happen. She went and she did a number of interviews before she realized that she has to stop and actually rest because she was concussed. She got a concussion. She's going to suffer from it's not a question of being a baby. You're going to now be very, very concerned about your surroundings wherever you are, as you should be. And it's just a horrible situation. What's your broader takeaway from this? I mean, it's going to get to the point where nobody can document these animals because they behave like animals, and everyone's going to be too scared to go. And I don't say that in a cowardly sense. I say that in a self-preservation sense. What's your takeaway from this, and what's your words of wisdom to Savannah?
You can't trust the local authorities to meaningfully prosecute. So someone asked, did she make a referral for criminal arrest? She did, documented it, detailed it, provided the intel and information to all the relevant authorities. But she is there enforcing her First Amendment rights of press and political freedom and expression and association. And this person is attempting to interfere with and interrupt those freedoms. And if the local prosecutor is not going to bring prosecution, that's a form of collusion that is violating her First Amendment rights that I think elevates to a First Amendment violation. So I think they should look at that angle. It'd be nice if they meaningfully prosecuted. Vice President Vance mentioned at the gathering in Georgia, Turning Point, not only the scale of corruption that would frighten people about Washington, D.C., about Epstein being an intel agent, by the way. He said that on the record for everybody. Go back and watch. He also said that there needs to be prosecution of the big money funders of these rogue actors, whether it's the amnesty facilitators, illegal immigration enablers, or these violent Antifa-style rioters who are there to intimidate and try to oppress someone from executing their First Amendment rights and freedoms. So there was talk that the Justice Department would do something about it. Let's see. I hope they do, and I think that is a meaningful place for relief and remedy to try to deter this long term. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening, and it's going
to get worse. I mean, she's lucky that she got away with as little as she did. It's just also she was reporting with TP. It was I don't want to say Turning Points, the agency that she was with. I mean, they just also need security, period. But as far as I'm concerned, you'll never have adequate security for that type of a mob. And even if you have security, like, yeah, okay, fine. You think somebody's gonna get stabbed for whatever salary they're getting paid when these lunatics get to that level of unhinged? It's just going to be a question of they're going to successfully deter anybody who's recognizable from going. And so you're going to have a continual turnover of people who are not known for being activist journalists documenting this level of insanity.
Someone asked in the chat about the reason why we didn't cover whether or not there's been a U.S. seizure of an Iranian cargo ship and whether or not there's been an Iranian counterattack of drones on a U.S. ship is because we're getting conflicting information happening live time. So we'll cover that next week. As broadly speaking, a blockade is a violation of the requirement that we have that Congress declare war because it's considered an act of war. That's the U.S. constitutional analysis. the blockade, to the degree it is being enforced against ships in the open seas, raises questions statutorily under certain what's authorized and not authorized as a matter of congressional authorization. And then you have various international treaties, Geneva Conventions, and others. But we're not a signatory to the United Nations law of the Convention on the Law of the Seas, nor is Iran. So there you would have to simply step back and ask yourself whether or not these are such universally recognized principles that they violate certain Just Kogan's international norms. And if not, then is there some other treaty that we are a signatory to that it might violate? But we didn't do a deep dive on either one because we're getting contradictory information all the time.
I just looked up. I haven't seen any reporting of a drone strike, but I'm only going for major search engines. The blowing of the hole in the cargo ship I've seen, and
there's talk about it. Don't know whether it actually happened or not. Don't know whose ship it is or not. So until we get more clarity on that, we'll see. There's definitely the biggest risk on the blockade, aside from it not resolving anything with Iran, is one, if those ships were headed to our allies. We're cutting off our allies from critical energy sources, and because usually that's what these ships are transporting is oil and gas. And if it's China, do we want to get into a direct conflict with China on the open seas? And then we really do have World War III. So that's the risk that people have warned the president about if we're actually going to escalate with this blockade. We will see.
Robert, we've got Chris Mortensen coming on Wednesday, talk about oil stuff, but we're probably going to have to talk
because there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. There's people that think America's a net exporter of every type of oil and gas. We're not. There's a lot of things that we import that we're net importers of. People don't understand this. There's people that think that if the U.S. can just step in and supply and replace all the oil and gas from the Persian Gulf, Chris can explain, nope, that ain't how this works. There's people who think there'll be no price impact, like Clay Travis, the retard of the day, always the retard of the day, honorary award winner, no matter what day it is. That think there'll be no price impact in the United States on oil, gas, or our supply chain economically. So Chris Mortensen has done a deep dive in this, has studied oil and gas for more than a quarter century. His organization, Peak Prosperity, comes from issues about whether or not we'd ever hit peak oil. So this is something he understands very, very well. So we'll have him on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time to do a deep dive into the oil and gas impact of the Iranian conflict.
So we got that Wednesday. What is your schedule looking like for this upcoming week, Robert?
So we got a Bourbon with Barnes, definitely on Tuesday and on Thursday, maybe on Monday. Thursday going to be live with former ex-lieutenant colonel and military whistleblower Daniel Davis on Deep Dive with Daniel Davis. There are some other ones that have loosely scheduled something that may be able to make. And then we put up tickets for the 1776 Law Center 250th anniversary of America conference and convention at 1776lawcenter.com. The tickets are now available. Special guest Alexander McCourse coming all the way in from the UK. Larry Johnson's going to be talking about how do we reform our intelligence agencies. Daniel Davis, how do we reform our military, including changing our supply chain protocols. The Chase Hughes coming in to talk about how to spot a PSYOP. Greg Hartley, who used to do the interrogations to stop terrorism around the world, talk about how to handle an interview. The Scott Rouse coming in to talk about how to use body language in negotiations. Michelle Renault, a state representative who won a big upset last year from Maha and then got good Maha reforms in. She's going to be coming in to talk about how she pulled off a huge upset in running for office and how she got through important Maha reforms, along with Amy Miller, a lead Maha advocate throughout the country.
Amazing. And I'll be live tomorrow. I got, you might know him as SC Mountain Goat, the man who trail runs with his dogs. He's going to come on tomorrow. We're going to have a fun time for a bit on the show. And then daily, 3 o'clock, everybody who's watching there now, you know where to support us. I want to bring up one last one before we go on over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. It's from P. Hans, because I want to address this. And we're going to raid out. We're going to raid out to, I'll see who we're going to go raid to. Tip question here. I want to go. Kimbox says, question mark. Peon says, they also conspired to violate her First Amendment rights. However, isn't this case similar to Barnes' complaint about Harmeet Dillon pursuing protesters who were interrupting on campus? The Jews. Not at all. I mean, if we're talking about Savannah, this was active assault and also preventing her from... so this is not a question of them expressing their First Amendment rights. This was assault to prevent her from engaging in her own.
Correct.
With that said,
there is no First Amendment right to assault someone.
I'm just expressing by deafening you for the rest of your life. Who do we go raid, Robert? Let me go see who's live on. So Salty doesn't let people raid him. We'll go to Barry Cunningham, I guess. We'll go to Barry Cunningham. He's live. He's talking about, is it time for Trump to destroy Iran? Rush Limbaugh warned us about Iran's biggest weapon. Is the title. We'll see what people think about that. Go raid. Come over to Viva Barnes.
If we try to destroy Iran destroys the entire Gulf Coast. We have an energy catastrophe, an economic catastrophe, fertilizer catastrophe, food catastrophe for the next 5 years. So think long and hard about that. All these people that are like, rah, rah, woohoo. That crowd is asleep at the wheel as to the realistic risk we face if Trump chooses the escalation ramp.
Well, no, and also, if it impedes or interferes with allies in Europe, not that anybody cares, you get out of NATO and
or
who gives a crap about Europe.
Why? If you're Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, why still be in the U.S. camp? Why not be in the China camp? Why not be in the Russia camp? Why not be in the Iran camp if it better protects your access to energy? So people should think long and hard about what they think is so super genius about going into escalation that would economically look like World War III.
Someone said raid Owen. Owen, I didn't see as being live right now, so I hope I didn't miss it. But anyways, we could raid again in 10 minutes. So we're going live now, and we're going to restrict. It's going to Locals After Party and Rumble Premium to thank all of those who actually support the work that you and I do, Robert, and everyone else.
And otherwise, if you want those, you want tickets to the conference or convention, just go or follow the legal news about food freedom, financial freedom, political freedom, medical freedom. That's all at 1776lawcenter.com.
I'm going to 70. Oh, I went to 76. Yeah, that's it. 1776 Law Center. Let me show it to everybody while we migrate.
One of our board members made a really cool old school poster.
Let me see here. Let's see here. Booyah, 1776.
Look on the left. Isn't that a cool poster?
Yeah, that's amazing. Beautiful. 1776lawcenter.com. And now, people, without further ado, we're going to go. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on a second. Let me get my screen up here. Okay, so this is the first time I do it. See, I kicked you down there, Robert. No, we're going. Okay, hold on a second. What's my problem? I'm trying to